Yes, sir. Plan on being here at midnight. Yeah. Are you going to the I'll be at the jail authority meeting in the morning if I can get out of bed. I'll get a long drive. But I'll have a long drive. You
Did good.
Oh, let's see what I'm standing. I'll try to print it once. That's fine. That's why I'm here. Oh, Henry. We'll give Mr. Anderson a heart attack. Like to go ahead and call the regular meeting of the Grayson County Board of Supervisors to order. I'm glad to have everyone in attendance tonight. We've got a good crowd, and so it's good to have a good citizen participation. Like to go ahead and call. We got some feedback. Yeah, reasonable. All right, now I think we got it fixed. Okay, I would ask everyone please to stand for our invocation and pledge to be led by Mr. Smith.
Right. Father, thank you for the day that we've enjoyed this beautiful day in Grayson County. Thank you for this good turnout of citizens in my county. Pray that you would be with us tonight and with our Board of Supervisors, especially as they conduct business for our county. All that you do for us, we'll praise your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you. You may be seated. Next, I would like to remind everyone of the decorum that is on the back of the agenda, and ask that all behavior during official meetings shall be consistent with the behavior exercised in any court or legislative room found within the Commonwealth of Virginia. There shall be no outburst, bullying, heckling, or other forms of disrespectful behavior by any individuals present within this chamber. And we do have public hearings scheduled tonight. One of them concerning the 6-year road plan. And since we do have several people here that I know are here to speak concerning their road or on other matters during public comment, please, I would ask that you adhere to our 3-minute limit. And so we're able to afford everybody the opportunity to speak in a good timely manner. And just please be respectful of that. And then brings us to the approval of our agenda and consent agenda. And the chair would ask for one amendment to the agenda to be considered. And that would be a move to go into closed session for consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters pursuant to 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia. And involving briefing concerning the county attorney's authority of Dillon's rule and contract laws and liability issues. And with that, chair will entertain a motion. Motion for second, any further discussion? Also, the chair would let the audience know that Mr. Fant is also joining this meeting by via teleconference. All right, with that in mind, then the chair would Call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman. Noted it's aye. Okay, and the chair also aye. All right, yes, we would go into before the public comment period and secondary plan. We'll have a briefing prior to that. I'll also go into public hearing. Randy Fowler. Good to have you with us. So this year, the allocations for the secondary 6-year plan, Grayson County is $490,942, and that equates to 1.5 miles that we can add the 6-year plan. And I've provided to the board through Mr. Smith a list of roads from VDOT's recommendation for each area. So basically, I have a list that I provided to you guys that hopefully a few of these roads that are on this list will be represented by the citizens tonight. But so that's all I've got for the 6-year plan. We can add 1.5 miles. Comments, and we can move forward to selecting some of these routes. We'll go ahead and get those. I do want to make sure that everybody that is here to speak on their road and has had opportunity to sign the list out in the lobby. If you have not, and you're here to and intend to speak on that, if you will, raise your hand. Okay. And then we might have, I think we have some participants that are out in the lobby. I mean, if you make that announcement with them to make sure that everyone out there.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I've already noticed that there's 1 or 2 that signed the wrong public comment sheet. So their name will be on here, so maybe you can ask. Okay.
Also, there's a sign-up sheet for the public hearing concerning the receive public comment on whether the board of supervisors should create a wireless service authority under the provisions of the Wireless Service Authority Act. Is there anyone here that in the audience in here to speak on that? Didn't sign up. Chair, entertain the motion going to public hearing. Bill, do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Ivy. All in favor of going into public hearing to receive comment on the 6-year secondary plan? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All this technology. Pardue, sorry. Richard Pardue, P.O. Box 968 Galax. Okay.
There is a delay. Like when I walked out, I was here and I said, "Talk."
Somebody may have lock switch in there. Thank you, sir.
It just had city's name out there.
Is he on his way? Okay, thank you. Hey, dude, good to have you with us. If you will, just state your name and your address.
Richard Pardue, 3034 Longview Lane, Daylights. I'd like to see the balance of Longview Lane get paid. The top part of it got paid 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. And there's only one more house up there than there is at the bottom. And it seems since the school bus doesn't run on it anymore, the maintenance on it has gotten much worse. There's probably between 2 and 3 weeks out of the year that FedEx and UPS will not come down it, not just on account of snow and ice, but because of the mud. And it gets really slick when it rains. Part of the problem is the ditches full of leaves, and when they do put blade to it, push all the gravel in the ditches so they don't drain. And then the road drains down the middle of the road and it washes it out. I mean, I've seen it with ruts in it 6-8 inches deep in some of these hard rains we have. It would just, as much traffic is on it, and it's at the end of the state maintenance down there, and everybody seems to know that it's down there, and a lot of people, both local people and people from North Carolina, come up to play in the river right there. So there's a lot of traffic on it and everything. It just makes it bad for us that live on it. If money's an issue, all that milled asphalt they took up off of 58 when they paved it last year, that if they spread that out on it, that would be almost as good as paving it. Because it gets just as hard as that, but it is asphalt, and it'll go back together if it's spread out on it. I'd like to see it paved. Thank you very much.
Amy Earhart.
Hello, my name is Tammy Earhart. I do live at one of the houses on Longview Lane, actually at the very end. First, I'd like to thank Linda Osborne, Kenneth Belton, and John Fan for helping me figure out how to come beyond and ask for help down the road. Currently, we have 10 houses on the road. All of us come in and out, and some of us go to work. There's parents that take their children to school, middle school and high school, so trips back and forth. Have Amazon, FedEx, UPS, mail in and out, wide open every day on the gravel road. And the same is true in the afternoons and the mornings. And then at night with all the after school activities and games and things like that. Right now, the road does need maintenance and it does need gravel. It's a solid base, but of course there are issues that Mr. Pardue did discuss. However, you wouldn't have to do it at one time if you tar and chip it, because it's such a great option and it makes the best sense. It provides great traction, it's easy to maintain, and of course it's more durable than gravel. He did talk about the washboards and the turns. It does have a lot of washboards, or we call them breaking bumps in North Carolina, which is where I'm from. And it's pretty hard for a lot of the residents there, a lot of the women that are driving, a lot of the small cars that are on that road. After rains, it does get really muddy and slippery. And when it really rains, they are all washouts. And Richard discussed those as well. But when it doesn't rain, it's really dusty. And when we have a construction business and we have to water our sites down to keep the dust down, especially around water. Well, that's an issue. So, you know, the dust is around the New River down there. So that would, tar and chip would solve that problem for the environment on the New River, so that accumulation doesn't happen down there in the New River. And the last reason is because some of those homes down there are retired people or people that are fixing to retire. And it would be a safer option for them to have a paved road rather than that gravel road down there. So we'd love to see it happen. Like he said, it did come down the road a little bit, but then it stopped, but there are houses down at the end and we'd love to have it. Please consider it next year for our, thank you.
Next speaker is, Ryan Palmer.
Good evening. Brian Tomby, 3098 Longview Lane. So I won't repeat Richard and Tammy. The only thing I'll say is there's been at least one accident on the road because there's 2 spots where it's 1 lane and it's on curve. I've almost had 4 accidents hitting Amazon and FedEx guys because they're not in a hurry when they drive somewhere. They don't go fast. They come around those corners and we have 2 good blind corners and they come around and they're on hills with drop-offs and somebody's going to go over one of them. Richard, we all got pickup trucks, and so we need to have something done and widen that, and it'd be great if it was tarnished. And that's all I got to say. Appreciate y'all's time.
Next speaker is David Rutherford.
I've not heard it yet.
Gentlemen, nice to see y'all again. This makes probably 8th year I've been coming. My name's David Rutherford, live at 1130 Little River Road, Gaylines. And just trying to get the road paved. It's real bad, washboard and washed out on the ditches. Sometimes with the hard rain, the ditches are knee deep. I mean, car goes off in it, it's stuck. There's no way to get out. And I think if the roads were paved, that would help with the washing because it washes the gravel into the ditches and they fill up and then it goes across the road and it just makes it make. And brother-in-law, he owns logging business and he travels that road with his logging trucks and stuff. And if the dirt roads, they don't mow maybe once a year. Road mates, it gets growed in where barely 1 car can get through there that you can see. And if it were paved, it would be mowed more and that would give more room to see and not be as dangerous when a big log trucks come through there. It's the same broken record I give y'all every year, but I appreciate y'all. Y'all have come up Little River Road, one side of me got almost to where I live. I mean, a couple 100 feet where it stops. And I like for it to come on around that road. And actually, there's a short road, it's called Allegheny Road. It's not even 1/10 of a mile. It comes from North Carolina state line and joins into Little River Road. And sort of start there and then going past my house, my Little River Road. And that would connect all of that in together. That's all I have.
You know how long it already is in Cold Springs, back to the.
Cold Springs?
Yeah.
Well, they actually got it on up past Cold Springs to where my mom lives right there at the intersection of Any Road is what he said. I wasn't here last year because I was out of town, but they went on from Allegheny down to all the way to the new bridge down that way. It's probably 2 miles, the whole strip. But there's a road called Hill Falls Lane. It's about 6/10 of a mile. That would get a long ways down through there, and that really help. So they can get it that far. Whatever you could get. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, great space. But we did add another section of Little River Road. looking into,
It don't even show up
Yeah.
on some maps.
it's not going around at all.
It's a couple hundred feet. It's not very long. There's no houses, nothing. It's just it's crazy the way they name the roads.
Yeah.
But it's just a,
Mixed in North Carolina. And so we're looking into. We think that it's a mistake. So we think it should be. What we're planning on doing is while we're dealing with the ones in the section. That's that over there. Forward. Right, yeah, and so we have plenty of time to get the issue worked out. For the.
thanks a lot.
Okay, next speaker is Virgil Moore.
For having me. I live at 373 Moortown Lane. And our road has been on the 6-year plan since I was a kid. Through Joe Long, Sonny Funk, James Carico, and then it's got the top of the 6-year plan. And I understand it's maybe back on now. But they have about somewhere between 3 and 4 pence long, and they hard top the other road going up by it. And when they done that, our maintenance went spot. I had to call Richmond to get highway department to come over there and fill up potholes. That's the only way I got it done. I talked to them and they never did come. And I took my equipment and I have worked the road myself. And right now, the grass on the side of the road is higher than the surface of the road. That way, the water can't get to the side ditch. It runs down the road. And after a hard rain, I don't have much choice about going to ride over the rough part, but fix it. And I have agreed VDOT and I to help clean the right of way. And at this present time, I cleaned about 1/10 of the road bank, rubbed all the trees and got it ready for them to do whatever. And I've got about another 1/10 of a mile. When they're going to do it, I will take care of it. Appreciate it. Y'all could help me.
Like it is not currently on the 6-year plan, but it's been listed as one of the good candidates for the rural busing.
All right.
I think it's passed the muster on some of the requirements for that, so. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is David Hash.
It's Debbie Hash. I live at 76 River Hill Lane, Independence, which is just a few feet off Pleasant Grove Road. I've lived there for 37 years and I've been here to talk to you all numerous times about Pleasant Grove Road. We have asked for widening of a 1.3 mile section right off of 58 that goes along the river. It's a very narrow 1-lane dirt road. There's over 100 camp lots. There's a campground that shuttles canoers and kayakers up the river. There's 6 homes within this area with full-time residents. And there are more homes in the Two Rivers subdivision. I'm not sure how many of those are full-time residents, but there are a lot. It's great that everybody wants to enjoy the river. We love that. But our little road isn't big enough to accommodate the trucks pulling campers, trailers pulling mowers each week, and loads of canoes and kayaks. There's very few places to pass, which results in people having to back up around blind curves. With all the homes that are on the road, we also have UPS and FedEx on our road pretty much every day, and it's definitely not big enough for that. We're on the 6-year plan and have been for a few years. I think my understanding is maybe 2023, 2024. And my main concern today is to make sure that that time frame is still on track before somebody's seriously hurt. This is not a request just to get a road paved. It's for safety, to keep somebody from getting hurt or even worse. Had several cars, trucks, trailers, and stuff to go over the road bank. It's a very steep road bank on one side, and then the other side is just a hillside. Last year, you all talked about making some cutouts while we were waiting to begin construction, but so far nothing's been done. I do want to thank VDOT. They're very good to us to bring gravel to work on the road. This summer, they cut back some rose bushes and some small branches, but our road's just too small for all this traffic. And I just would like to request that you all either start construction or start construction soon. Thank you.
It's fully, that road is fully funded in July.
Next summer. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Here is Ron Door.
I'm Ron Doyle. I live in 358 Two Rivers Drive, which is off Pleasant Grove as well. So I won't repeat what she said, but I will ask a question because looking at the proposal, it says it's funded next year, but it says it's not being surface treated. It says it's without added capacity, which to me means it's not going to be widened. And so my ask is it going to be widened like she was asking? Is it going to be surface treated? Or if not, what's actually going to be done to it?
And we work within a restricted easement, which is 30. So what we do is we try to get as much width up to 16 feet. So when they do they go up the back of it.
Surface treating, is that the same as tar and chip, or is it?
Yes.
That's what it's
And we're actually moving forward in the future on roads that are neutral routes that let's say it connects to a paved road. We're moving into doing this more often than not. Paved versus tar and chip. Okay. So we have a through road that's a connector route and has versus tar and chip.
far out you're going to go out?
1.3 miles.
Any idea where that stops? I don't know where that is.
Speakers registered on the meter. So
Already brought it up. No way, I'm just going to do that. Sign the other form. So we're not just doing it.
Barry, I didn't sign it. That one you're on the right.
Yeah.
And I'll just put you down to give me your address and everything.
Okay, my address is 452 Hickory Lane, and I on the road 1786 Hickory Lane. I've been here before also, and have the same problems these other people have. My road's only 3/10 of a mile. There's 10 houses on this, 18 cars, plus the mail, FedEx, 8 UPS. All those, it's a one-lane road. No car, you can't pass on the road. You either back up or get into the side ditch and there's not too many side ditches there. I measured one place today where we had some trees that were on the roadside, and the state cut them a few years ago and they rotted out, and there's a big hole, and from the edge of the hole where the trees fell out, the water pushed them out. It's 9 feet. So it's just barely, you can get in to the one vehicle. One place is wide, some of them's not. I've got one garage that's road level. Every rain, a heavy rain, it floods. It's a dust bowl in the summertime and it's a mud hole in the wintertime. Washes gravel throughout 2 or 3 driveways. They're a little lower than the road is, and it washes gravel in them every time they wash. And we have a lot of visitors down there. There's a lot of people. Like out of those, we've got 18 cars on that road, and just about every one of them's driven in and out 2 or 3 times a day. All I have. We appreciate any help.
I'm at Prairie Osmore and live on Camp River, 765 Camp River Road. Some of the other ones said, I've been told since '87 it was on a 6-year plan, and see the downer all the way up. And I was told that we was on the 6-year plan and fully funded on Camp River in 2023, and I just want to see if that's still in.
It's fully funded in July 2023. So it should start.
Maybe a year probably, or
No,
I mean,
I'm in
chance
the
for
month.
now.
So it all goes well and the weather's good. They'll probably have it done before winter time.
Okay.
Yeah. Combs, I think you're here. Did you have opportunity to sign?
I did, but
Okay. I just state your name and address and.
yes, I'm Melissa Combs and I'm here for the 6-year plan. I'm currently living on Plateau Road and that road number is 650. The road up from Carsonsville goes all the way to Spring Valley and across. But on the Carsonsville entrance, that road, you're lucky if you have 10 feet of a right of way. And so there's no passing or anything on that road. You have to back up or find a place to back. So I'm just requesting if you put me on a 6-year plan or a year plan would be fine with me. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tom Simpson. I live at 354 Two Rivers Drive, which as you heard is off of Pleasant Grove. And I'm thrilled. July of 2024 sounds awful good. It's been a long wait. My wife did go over the side of that 11 years ago. And it's narrow, it's dangerous. We've talked about that quite a bit. There's a lot of culverts that are torn up. You can tell we're getting near summer. Everybody puts a stick on the broken culverts so fewer people run in them. But as we get the 100+ river lots, which are actually pretty good neighbors, it's not complaining about them, but when all their guests come in on the 4th of July, it's hard going on that road. So it's been a long wait, but we're thrilled to hear it's fully funded. We'll be back next year to make sure it's still fully funded. And I am president of the Property Association, so I can maintain our Two Rivers Drive mainland. And I'm a full-time resident. We have 33 lots. We have 9 houses. And the number of full-time or near full-time varies from about 4 to 6 residents. There is a real need to get it done and to fix those culverts. We would also wonder, is there any opportunity for citizens to review or see any of the stuff prior, or we just hope and pray that VDOT does a great job with it?
I can guess that, yeah. Yeah, basically when the project does start, they'll start doing
Right.
They start with ditching, drainage, and replacement of all the pipes, and then move forward to the bank.
Not to get into technical stuff, but we also have piping failure right below where the drive comes out. There's no culvert, but it's cutting a hole under the road.
need to work on. Thank you, board and VDOT, for getting us to this point. Incidentally, 1.3 miles gets to Two Rivers Drive. Just downriver from Two Rivers Drive, about 100 feet, there's a piping failure. If you go on the downslope side, you can see where it's coming out. But I haven't stuck my stick in it yet. There's a hole where it goes in on our side of the building.
Smith will check out the lot.
Been here, he was constant. And then Rod was. Not only very. He was instrumental.
Or the chair entertain a motion to come out and So, I have a request, from through bench, sent me an email last week, and I reviewed Longview Road, the remaining unpaved section from the end of pavement to the end of state maintenance, which is down by the river, and that road does qualify for Roll Rustic 6-year. It can actually qualify for 6-year plan. So it's exactly 1 mile from end of pavement to the river. So that would be 1 mile. Then another road that was mentioned tonight was Moortown Lane, which is 0.5 miles. And that would be a good candidate as well. And said those two were selected by the board, that would take care of the 1.5 miles that we can add this year.
I've had some calls about Saddle Creek. District,
Maintenance issues.
not maintenance issues, wanting to get on the 6-year plan. What is the?
Okay. Let me check. So you try to keep up. Quite a few projects on the shelf that we go ahead and review. Yeah, that's right, there's Saddle Creek on the top. So basically, we go out and review routes just in case this type question comes up. So we're more prepared for this time right now. So Saddle Creek Road, 682. That's a traffic count of 77. It's 1.5 miles. Looking, we have different criteria we have to go by. Here, it looks like a 0.7 mile section of that road is too steep and too narrow to build under the rural rustic, because there would have to be a lot of cutting of banks, and it's really steep, and then off the field slope side, it's steep as well. So 0.7 miles would not, but the first 0.8 miles to Route 683 can be built rural rustic. So that would be, so from the intersection where you enter onto Saddle Creek Road, you could actually do 0.8 miles. So 8/10. And then at that point, there's a little intersection of 683 that cuts off. From that point, it gets really steep and rugged, so it pushes it out of this rural rustic concept.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I got a question about.
Sorry, we do that one more quick. Oh, okay. State your name and address, and I'll put you on the list.
Yeah, Richard Alley, 1809 Petty Road, Galax, Virginia. I'm just here to ask for, I don't really know what I'm asking for, maybe a speed limit sign or a children at play sign. I live pretty close to the road. It used to be a dirt road, but they paved it now, halfway. But they fly down through there, and a lot of times I holler at them, but most time when they stop, they say, well, if you had a speed limit sign or something like a children at play sign, then most of the people would know or something. Always say that. So, that's what I was wondering, if I could get, something like that done maybe. And some of my neighbors were too, so I done a petition and I had a few of them signed, and some of them was not into it because I guess they didn't have kids, and the children at play sign, maybe. Other than that, that's it.
Yes, yes, sir. Okay, yes. Should have been 3500 installed in that project. So, some supervisors tomorrow have go review that son's not very good. So,
Okay.
and then as far as children, that's in on 2012, that responsibility of children play signs. So I'll assume that you're going to do again, and you can take the board, you guys can review that, and you can. It used to be VDOT responsibility, but for whatever reason.
County is responsible for buying signs and maintaining the sign. Both.
Sign definitely, it's not there. So.
I put up the child at play sign at the place. County would have to do it.
Would be the consensus of the board to ask staff with. Purchasing the cost related to it.
I would pay for it. If I-
Staff and board to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Yes.
Is that sign bill or is that VDOT?
We basically what happens when we get a request for adjustment time. Go review the area, see what's going on.
You know, I guess I have on Pleasant Grove, where they dump part the river.
Okay. Okay. Note that. It's around 4 to. I'll get back.
So, since we're off the paved roads, section 58 and Hardin Road, and I've talked with Jade about that. And I think person maybe we were communicating with retired, and I cannot remember her name.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still with the, she
okay. Okay. What's the process that's real danger where you pull out right there, like perhaps a turn-in lane. So, I mean, there has been digging hill there in the past, and now we have tractor trailers getting tangled on their GPS, and they're trying to take Hardin Road, so they get stuck right there, and it's a blind curve. And I get calls weekly. I'll put out there.
Are you?
Sure.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Pam had looked into that, and I did as well. And I actually went out with at that time, the traffic engineer from Bristol. then we reviewed that intersection. And we do agree that something needs to be done. As far as, we'd like to put a turning lane in. But we approached the landowner, if you're leaving Independence and you're turning left onto Hardin Road, we actually would need some right of way from the landowner to the right to gain the width so that we could keep a lane open and install a turning lane. And so that at that time, I think the owner, someone had passed away and now it belongs to a three. Yeah. And so Pam, she contacted one of the heirs and just kind of kept running into a wall. We weren't able to get an agreement that we could have part of right away to do this. So at this point, I mean, we could we can look at this again. We have a new traffic engineer in place now in Bristol. We can approach that landowner again, or if maybe the board knows those folks.
I wouldn't mind trying to reach out to, I know the landowner, but I would need more specifics as far as like how much, we're talking as far as cutting the curve out.
Okay.
Just from a layman's person, it didn't look like it was that much.
It would, and actually, and we can get the exact information to you on that, but basically we just lay it back just a little bit, and when we finish, so we apply topsoil, seed, and straw, and actually they would never know that they gave that. I should say it this way, but they wouldn't really know that they gave up that part of that land.
Okay.
Basically, it drops off to the road now. We would lay it back and leave. So,
Okay.
but I mean, if we can get a right of way there donated to this, we can move forward with it.
Okay.
Do that.
All right. I really appreciate that.
Okay. I know we have Mr. Fant by video. Mr. Fant, would you have any follow-up questions before we come out public hearing?
Yeah, thanks, Andy, for covering on Hardin Road there. I've also had, as you know, a couple of years ago, we talked about it, and I think it still needs to be pursued, whatever we need to do to solve that problem. When I couldn't hear your answer on Little River Road, I know a segment is on the 6-year plan now. What was your answer back to the citizen about what's on the 6-year plan? Will that finish out Little River Road, or do we have a little bit left that we still need to consider?
About what's on the 6-year plan, will that finish out Little River Road, or do we have a little bit left? It will add another. Can you hear me now, John?
Check.
John, we're going to turn the volume down on you again, and so he can make his reply to you, because we're getting a lot of reverb back here. Okay, John, so it's going to add another 1.4 miles. And that's from 701. And actually it's from the end of pavement on 701 Little River Road. We're going to extend it another 1.4 miles. And we're going to work in that little section of Allegheny Road in the process. I'm not sure if there's another section of Little River that will still be unpaved without reviewing that.
Okay. The other question that I think recall from a couple of years ago were Lost Lake and Rocky Hollow Road. And those, I think, both either are used heavily like Pleasant Grove is for recreation, but also have a bunch of people who live on it, but they also go into the national forest. And I think we looked into some specialty grants associated with those type of roads. Is there any changes in things that we need to do to maybe to address Are there any opportunities that you know of that we can address for roads that are being heavily used for recreation tourism that also lead into the national forest?
I think another gist of this question. Okay, it's kind of a follow-up from prior 6-year planning road discussions where Rocky Hollow Road was a topic of discussion because of the horse trailer traffic on that road. And then another was there any grant possibilities because Lost Lake being a road that's a lead into national forest property. That up into Farmers Rock, Hills Lake area.
Seven miles. If up by for a little busted. But as far as, are you asking if we can do it as like a revenue sharing or?
I think that there was possible with grants from the federal government maybe to doing projects near national forest property.
Okay, and is this something that Jada and Keith were already discussing, or is this something we need to look into?
It was something that came up in the last 6-year road plan discussion from last year.
So Lost Lake and Rocky Hollow Road.
Now, Rocky Hollow does not have any connections to national forest property, but the one at Lost Lake, that was the one that there was, we had discussed. Maybe there was some funding that the federal government provided as an entrance road to. Y'all may get me for getting it all wrong. I think that was the gist of it.
Check and see if there's federal funding to get this road done. Outside the situation.
I remember correctly, there were several people that spoke on that one last year.
You may have that memory.
I don't remember the detail. But it's a steak dinner if we can get something done on that road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me check and see. I'm sure Pam was with me at that meeting last year, and I know she was making notes of the same question. So I'll see where she got with it. And because I know she's Mark Williams introduced me to a few of you guys. He's our residency engineer now, assistant engineer. He took Pam's place. So wherever Pam left off with it, get off the mark, and we'll see if there's some type of funding out there.
Mr. Fowler, I guess I got a question. I mean, there has to be a resolution. Supervisors have to make their choice of the 1.5 miles, and there has to be a resolution that they pass. Yes. So what's the time frame? I know we have some kind of time frame.
So basically, we have the citizens tonight, and we have 1 point. So which routes we add. So we do need you guys to, they have to vote tonight. I know that we have to have the road selected and the resolution.
The board does have another budget meeting next Thursday night that week.
There's no other speakers and no further discussion, then the chair entertain a motion to come out of public hearing 6-year road plan. So and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. And the chair also aye. Right. So there's no motions to move forward on And next to our next public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we'll move on. I just might mention, Mr. Powell mentioned to me right before the meeting. This will be his last 6-year road plan. He's retiring in July, so we'd like to thank him for the job that he's done for us. Lisa County.
Thank you. But you gotta wait 6 years.
I sent you a plan too, so I really like that long rain that's going away.
So your phone is on the floor.
Next, Chair. Public comment. Whether the board of supervisors should create a wireless service authority. Wireless Service Authorities Act, Chapter 54.1, Title 15.2, Code of Virginia, 1950, as amended in order to assist the county in forming public-private partnerships to provide internet service, particularly and initially, although not exclusively, in the western portion of the county. The Board of Supervisors intends to appoint an initial board of directors of the authority. Prior to any speakers, Chair, will recognize Mr. Tom Reynolds. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Yeah, as you know, I am the project manager for the current broadband project. The county's goal has always been and will continue to be providing universal access to 911 services, broadband internet services, and cellular service. And any of us that live in the county can identify those three things. If you've got two that you think are great, then you're living a blessed life, because most of us don't have any of those things that are satisfactory. Our current project, while moving slower than we'd like, we now have over 250 people with great internet service. We've got assets in place so that we can at least double or triple the number of people, hopefully by the fall, who will have current broadband service. And I'm really thankful for that. Now, honestly, the project has not moved as fast and as quick as we would like. And I'll tell you, AEP, Gigabeam, and the county have learned some hard lessons over the last few years. I guess the prime lesson that we've learned that relates to this request is the fact that not one technology will satisfy and address every issue of every resident in this county. We're learning that fiber works great in some areas, it's a disaster in others. We know that cellular service can work in some areas, but we don't have the vertical assets, the towers, if you will, to distribute those signals universally across the county. So the broadband authority is being requested of you gentlemen, consideration, because we need greater flexibility in the way we can approach the delivery of multiple technologies. Because remember, our goal is every single person in this room should have access. Now, if you don't want it, you don't have to take it. But if you want it, you should have access to reliable service in those three areas. So let me tell you about the flexibility. I'll just give you a couple of examples. First of all, 90% of the counties in this state have broadband authorities. The technology, design, construction is very complicated. It's interwoven. And the way normal county activities are functioning do not allow us as a county, doesn't allow this board to do certain things that may be required in order to achieve our objective. And let me give you a couple of examples. In one county on the border of West Virginia and Virginia, about 100 miles from here, they had great progress over 80% of their county. But they had the westernmost side of their county that bordered West Virginia with nothing. And try as they might, no private vendor would build the 2 towers to provide the service that was needed by the residents of those areas. And they wouldn't do it because you wouldn't do it. Because they couldn't make money to pay for it because there were so few people. And frankly, we run into that a lot in our own county. Their wireless authority built the towers, and then a national vendor leased the towers, which allowed them to pay for it over many years. And guess what? In a matter of about 7 months, people who had nothing had wireless broadband as fast as is available in today's world, as well as cellular service. The county couldn't build the towers. It's against the law. But the wireless authority, which was created by our legislature, and will let these 5 gentlemen, well, 4 gentlemen and the one that we keep hearing twice on the screen, would allow them to make decisions, develop partnerships, and frankly, allocate money differently that would support the development of the service. Now, this is another example. And again, I'm not trying to paint a picture that says these gentlemen have to do any of this. But there's another county where when they finished all of their great projects, they had about 4% of their people that, as one person said, I live under a rock. And I couldn't get service. So that county said, what if we could have satellite service for you? And what if our county could negotiate with a satellite provider to reduce the cost of implementing that service? And by the way, the county put money into cellular and broadband for everybody else. So this particular county used their authority to create a grant for the citizens who couldn't get service any other way, so that they could afford satellite service. These guys can't do that. They can do that if they're sitting behind that table representing the wireless authority for the county. Now, this is not smoke and mirrors. This is legislation that was created over 10 years ago by the state of Virginia, because our legislators realized that the complexity of building out communication infrastructure had outpaced a lot of the laws that govern what these folks can do legally in their positions. The wireless authority will not require any new positions. It's being proposed that these gentlemen will serve as the board. Current administrative staff will staff it. So there's no new FTEs. There's no new buildings, no new offices, no nothing that's needed to put this in place. So tonight, as a project manager who frankly gets calls, I thought VDOT got a lot of calls until I took over this job. Day after day after day, and I listen to people talk about a need to service. Why can't I get it? I'm an advocate. I hope you gentlemen will approve this, because it will allow us as a county to move forward in ways to create and achieve the goal that we've set for ourselves that today we cannot achieve without it. So thank you.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I know we've had several conversations on this topic. If we form the broadband authority as it's written here to enable monies for the citizens that's already solved their own problems through satellite service, like the example you gave in West Virginia, to refund those folks, or perhaps give folks that have not yet got it and probably are not going to get it based on our current plan, would we be able to refund those or give those folks money? Is that what I'm hearing?
Supervisor Anderson, I have had a conversation, because when I heard about this, I had a conversation with our lawyer who's helping us with broadband. And his comment about that was, if the board of the wireless authority chose to set that program up and chose to implement it with that provision, that there's nothing against the law in spending the funds in that way. So it comes down to what you gentlemen would consider an appropriate strategy to employ to create fairness and equity among the citizens who need that service.
So, and when you talk about funds, are you talking about the grants that we're getting for the specific project, or we could designate that local tax dollars towards that?
We could do grant funds, we could do local tax dollars. As a matter of fact, wireless authorities are going to have access to federal grants that will not go through counties. But in fact, will go through the wireless authorities, hopefully starting in 25. So any of the funds that authority could legally claim could then be distributed consistent with the guidance of the board of that authority, as long as it's equitable and fair to the citizens being served.
And one point of clarity, we do have the accounting attorney with us tonight, Mr. Durbin, but you're referring to
Mike
Locker.
Yes, who's given us guidance on our project, broadband project. Yes, thank you. Strategy.
Are we still in discussion? Oh, we haven't got a motion there, have we?
Thank you.
All right, at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to go into public hearing. And Mr. Belton. Any further discussion at this point? Chair would ask for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. What?
I'm sorry, I was, oh, we're closing. I thought we were good. Do we not have any speakers related to that? Just Tom?
No, we're going into public. Hearing.
Okay, okay.
We haven't opened up public hearing yet.
I'm with you.
Okay. All right. All right. So we have a motion and then a second. All in favor of going into public hearing for the purpose. Albany Authority, signify by saying aye. Man, I don't know if we have his volume put up in the pitch.
Gentlemen, if I can direct your attention up here to the screen for Mr. Van, I've got him on chat here. And this. So these are to put them on speakerphone. Probably do that. It's gonna take a couple of minutes. Keep talking. One of us.
Okay, and we'll pitch comments and then if there's any discussion, the chief will be involved in the meetings and they'll give you opportunity to work on the issue. Okay, and so the chair also aye. And at this point, we would be in public hearing. And we're gonna put you on speaker. But I do not have any registered speakers. Again, as we did with the 6-year plan roster, if there is anyone that in the audience in here or in the lobby that has failed to sign the public comment sheet, chair offer the opportunity at this time for anyone to be added to that comment sheet. Okay.
Great, Virginia. I got hooked up this past week. That's Thursday. I'm sorry, last Thursday. I mean, just out of the blue, they called and they were great to work with. Gigabee was wonderful to work with. They just, I mean, they called on Monday. They were there on Thursday and booked us up. Service is good. I didn't even shut down my bright speed until Monday because I wanted to make sure that we had the good service that they were promising. So I'm tickled to death with it. Hopefully your wireless authority will go because I know there's a lot of, I was going to look at Starlink because service with bright speed was so bad, even though we are in a good area. But I was looking at going with Starlink, which is twice the amount of money per month, but good service. So if you can provide good service to people by setting up a wireless authority, I think you should do so. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind. Be a little bit more accommodating, since we turn out, I haven't seen anybody not be afforded the opportunity to speak. Appreciate your patience.
Everyone in the lobby is good, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. We thank the staff. We thank the staff.
Okay.
All right, this point, Chair, entertain a motion coming out of public hearing. And we have a motion by Mr. Belton. Okay, second by Mr. Anderson. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Mr. Fan? Okay, thanks, sir. Chair also aye. Want the Chairman, any entertain any motions?
Chair, I make a motion that we create a wireless service authority.
Okay, that motion before the board. I have a second. Second. Fast second. Any further discussion?
I guess I'm just a lay person when it comes to a lot of this technology. And I would struggle with which way to go with forming an authority, because I seem like it's another layer of bureaucracy, and everything that Mr. Revel said sounds great. And search. But I know probably 5 years ago, everything sounded great. There was a lot of research. And here we are. You know, we went from being the pioneers to the guinea pigs with the state on this project. So I just wanted to explain my position and why I'm voting the way I am, so folks know where I'm at. Because we get calls every day, so I know he gets them because we forward them to him. So when he tells you he's getting calls, he's getting calls. And then we go back behind, hey, did you ever hear from Mr. Rivers? Yes. So he's done a good job doing his homework on those things. So my issue is we have a lot of citizens that's already solved their own problem because they're tired of waiting on this project. And for whatever reason, the project's not going, we can debate that all night long. It should, and we're behind the times, we're behind the technology. But the one thing that sticks out to me is where the folks have solved their own problems, whether it be, you know, service, you know, satellite service through Starlink or whatever, they're getting left out in the future plans that we have and the future monies that we get, whether we form a broadband or not. They've already solved the problem. And a majority, you know, the entire county is helping to fund the project, not just people in certain areas that are not getting service. And all our goals ultimately is for everyone to have access to service. But I want to help those that have already solved their own problems in some way. And it seems like this is the only way that I've been told, and I've talked to the attorney that drafted this, talked to Tom, and that was a big question I've been asking. So if there's a way that we can help those folks, I'm going to support this. I'm going to vote for it. It's the reason why, so we can help folks solve their own problems. But I don't want to mislead the community and think that we've figured something out that we haven't. But I know we're working diligently. Everybody has the same goal, but there's been a lot of broken promises over the last 5 years as it relates to this project, and more broken promises are yet to come, I'm guessing. So I just wanted to lay that out there because I really struggled with which way to go with this. And, so I would.
Okay, any further discussion before the board? Okay, hearing none, chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. The chair also aye.
Chairman,
Yes.
speaking to the county attorney, I think the motion may need to be to adopt the resolution forming the authority. Probably a roll call vote.
Okay, all right, thank you. Parliamentarian here with us tonight to keep me straight. Okay, would that be, see, who was the original motion?
Sure, we've got that on the agenda.
We have a reading of the resolution. We'll just move that item to, it's currently under new business anyway.
I think that's appropriate to handle it that way. I didn't see it right. Earlier, I want to make sure we didn't think that there was not further action necessary. So it sounds like.
Okay. Guess it's reading of the resolution. Or is that pretty tasking?
Well, Mr. Chair, the resolution is 4 pages. The entire resolution, or
Would be consensus of the board to waive the reading of that resolution?
yes.
Mr. Fan? Okay, I think everyone is good with the reading of the resolution. All right, so this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Anderson? All right. Mr. Ivy? Aye. Mr. Bell? Mr. Fan? Chair also aye. On behalf of the citizens, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Okay, so we'll get back on track. And that would bring us to reports, presentations, or requests. And CPA, CFE audit presentation from Robinson Farmer Costs Associates. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Scott Wickham. I'm partner in charge of the county's audit. Now, we wrapped it up about a little over a month ago, but I had a conflict in the last meeting, wasn't able to make it. So here to go over the results of the June 30th, 2022 audit report. Full house, a lot going on, so I'll be a little brief, but my contact's on the front of the handout tonight as well. So if you have questions at a later point, feel free to reach out. With that, I'm going to hit some high points in the actual audit report and give you a little summary of some of that activity. On page 2, and this is not in the handout, this is the full audit report. On page 2, you have the auditor's opinion. This is the opinion on the financial statements. And again, the county has an unmodified clean opinion, which means the number presented in the report are completely accurate. Years ago, a clean opinion was a 3-paragraph opinion with all the required disclosures. It's quite a few more paragraphs than that now. It does note change in the accounting principle. The county adopted GASB 87 leases, which was a new standard required by GASB to account for operating leases and capital leases in a different manner. So as required, the county did implement that. The net impact was about a break even. There was a significant receivable recorded, the EDA fund related to the O-call police receivable. There were some payables recorded as far as some copiers and things like that as well. So offset almost, but there was a lot of activity recorded in. Again, so in this opinion, it's a clean, good opinion. Page 6 starts the management discussion and analysis. And if you're going to read part of the report, this is a good summary. So this is in the full audit report, but this is a good summary of the change in the current standing of the county. Exhibit 1 on page 15. This is the statement of net position. This is the balance sheet for all county water and sewer activities. As the full accrual, all the county's assets, less all the county's debt for net position. As you can see, the total column there comes out about 20 million available, about 7.7 of that actually available. About 12.5 of that is in infrastructure, equipment, buildings, and things of that nature. Exhibit 3 on page 17. This is the county balance sheet in a much more zoomed in, shorter time frame. So this is the balance sheet on a modified accrual basis of the county. You have the general fund with an unassigned fund balance of about $10.2 million. So as of June 30th, that was what was available to the county. Other funds that are noted as restricted as required by law and outside sources. Other funds that have been set aside by the county board. Page 19, exhibit 5. This is the income statement on the same modified accrual basis of county, which is cash activity plus short-term receivables less short-term payables. You can see an increase of about $600, almost $700,000 to the general fund during the year. So it's a good year for the county. On page 21 through 23, exhibit 7, 8, 9, at the blended public service authority for the water and sewer fund of the county. And this gives you the idea of the details of those activities. Exhibit 8 shows the decrease of about $97,000 in that fund this year, which mirrors the depreciation, which is a non-cash expense. So on a cash basis, they close to break even in that fund. In fact, on exhibit 9, you can see right in the middle the increase and decrease in cash. And so when you factor in debt service, the PSA or water fund had a decrease in cash about $20,000. So overall, the cash in that fund is reasonable, but it's something to monitor as that fund had a decrease in cash during the year. With that, I'll move all the way to the back of the report. Our second report that we issued in here is page 154. This is the report on gas, compliance with internal controls. We have one finding noted as a material weakness here, similar to prior year. Those are detailed in the back. We were required to propose material adjustments, so that finding is noted. That is a common finding for counties in Virginia. The second one on page 156, or the second finding, sorry, on page 155. There were expenditures out of funds that did not have official budgets. All expenditures should be properly appropriated. On the next opinion is their opinion on uniform guidance, which is our review of your federal funds. This was a clean opinion, so there were no issues noted on that report this year. So it's a clean report. Page 159 and 160 goes over the detail of those federal funds, which are considered for testing. A lot of those funds related to COVID during this time period. It includes the school funds as well, so school and social services funds. As I mentioned, detail those findings right towards the back. As they come down the report. With that, I'll move on to the actual handout that I passed out. Move over to page 2. I apologize, it's a little bit small, but it's helpful to have a 10-year trend on where the activity has come from and where it's headed based on that judgment. Over the 10-year trend, you can see the property taxes across the county have increased about 3.6%, but total revenue is about 4.3%. So a lot of that is driven by the property tax increase. Over that same 10-year trend, you can see expenses increasing across the county about 4.7%. Now, a lot of that is heavy with increase in activity from grants and things in the last 2 years. I know a lot of the COVID funds increase a lot of your expenditures and your grants during those time periods. You may see a significant increase in capital projects there. That was related to the broadband, so most of it as discussed there. And across the bottom, you have the ending fund balance and ending cash investments. Both of those increased from the prior year. Total fund balance about $11.4 million, which is about a 1.4% increase the annual growth rate, about 4% for cash and investments. So what does that mean for the county? If you look at page 3, it gives you more of an idea of where the county stands. GFOA is a national organization, and they recommend the county keep a minimum of 2 months, about 16.67% of unassigned fund balance on hand as a percentage of operating expenditures. Now, that is a very general rule of thumb, so that doesn't take into account the ability to earn revenue. So some counties have more industry to tax than others. So that's one thing to consider. Also, for you all, you receive a large portion of your taxes in June, right at the end of the year. So the timing of some of that factors into those as well. And the third part of that is that's the unassigned fund balance. But if you have in your mind plans for projects that are not actually in a fund, that's something to think about as well. So the unassigned fund balance is what's actually in your books as unassigned. And the county did have 23% this year. So a little above that recommended amount. As I mentioned, you all received a lot of your taxes in June, so it probably should be a little bit above that amount. There was an increase from 21% last year to 23% this year. So overall, the county is looking in a pretty strong position in the general fund. Over on page 4, we have the debt summary and the debt per capita. I always want to point out that this debt calculation includes items beyond your bonded debt. So it does include your bonded debt with your future debt schedules. It also includes all the financial accounting debt. So your pension liabilities and OPEB liabilities and those items that are financial items that you may not see a debt schedule for, but GASB requires them to be recorded, so they're included in here. I include them because the state average also includes them. So you're comparing apples to apples there. As you can see, the debt per capita for the county for 2022 was about 1,916. The state average is about 4,501. And that is reported a year behind. So it says the same as 2021. That's actually a 2021 number. That's the most available number we have. But that does include Northern Virginia and localities that have a lot more debt, a lot more income. So it should be well below, but it is. It's a good spot there. On page 5, you can see the tax assessment trends. In total, it's fairly flat across the board. You can see by item, the machinery and tools tax has had a pretty good increase over the last 10 years, as well as public utilities. But the impact on that overall total is fairly small. A few pages here are charts of that similar data. Page 9, there's an informational item to give you a summary. One of those accounting debts that were included in that schedule was the net pension liability, which is an amount provided by the state actuary. It's recorded with a discount rate of 6.75%. And essentially what I'm telling you is in the county's financial statements, there's a $3 million liability in there. That's a significant estimate calculated by an actuary based on projected earnings of funds held on hand by BOS. So that liability is nothing the county has done wrong. It's an allocation by the state, just calculating. So I want to point that out that is reported because it's supposed to be, but it's a big estimate. You can see it's about $8.5 million to the pools as well. Page 10 is a very similar calculation for the OPEB for other post-employment benefits, which is allowing retirees and health insurance, as well as the group life and health insurance plans from BOS. The next few pages give you a little bit of additional information. The big impact was last year with leases. We also could see some impact with subscription-based IT arrangements or SBITAs, which are basically Microsoft licenses that span a period of time or other IT type arrangements. So that could impact, and that goes into impact in this current fiscal year. So we'll be reaching out to the finance staff to start getting some of that information together for us. I did just hear that for a wireless authority, GASB 94 might impact a potential public-private partnership partnership, something like that. So as you get into that, that's something to consider. I also would recommend that if that authority was adopted, that they would be accounted for in a separate fund in the county books. Couple guys be coming into play in a few years there, so that's some reading information for you. Page 17 and 18. This is a report we're required to file for the state. Where we do testing of the county and school board pension, the actual data in the online system. Our testing came back clean for both the county and the school board. No issues noted in that testing. Years ago, there was someone who had retired and was still up in the system, so they were getting credit they didn't get it, and various things like that. So, in accordance with reporting that liability, they also wanted to put some checks in there to make sure that people weren't getting credit they couldn't get, and they are getting credit they shouldn't. So, but our testing for the county here came back. The next couple pages, pages 19, 20, and 21. These are audit recommendations. So items that are best practice in nature, or items that are we recommend as improvement, or non-compliance that's probably not material to the financial statements. So several items there we've recommended. Don't think there's anything that's rather new to significant. But if you have any questions on any of those, I'd be happy to go over them.
Question.
Sure.
Under the county sales tax for broadband project.
Yes.
Says we paid $24,875 in sales tax that we should have been exempt from. Were we able to?
I'm not sure. I know that during our review of that grant, we saw that those sales tax were paid for from Virginia localities, which are Virginia businesses, which would mean that it was exempt since you are using it for that purpose. I believe the grant funded sales tax. I don't think the county was allocating money, but I don't know that you all should have paid or received it from grants. So it's something to look into. Maybe you can get that back with the finance reaches out to them. I have a schedule of that if finance wants that provided. The last few pages of the report kind of summarizes a lot of what we talked about. The overall process of the audit. This is a letter to you all to give you that summary. I mentioned the new change for leases. Otherwise, it talks about several estimates that are significant, including depreciation or useful life of assets, collectability of revenues, and net pension liabilities and federal liabilities. So those are significant estimates, pretty much in line with prior years. The rest of the letter goes on to speak about the audit process and any challenges with that. The staff was super helpful in providing information. During COVID, we went to an online portal where a lot of our files are submitted to us virtually. Gives us a good amount of time to prepare before we come on site. And so the staff was very helpful to do that. So both of the county school board social services was very helpful in doing that. The audit process went really well. There was a little bit of a delay this year. The county had a new consultant help prepare for the audit and getting the schedules to line up, push the audit back just a little bit and get it completed. But all the process still went really well, and I'm happy with the results. Tanner's in good shape. Pretty good audit. Are there any questions?
Question.
Contest on the front. It's a lot of information. So if you do read through and have questions, please let me know. Thank you all.
We'll have United Way, Twin County Regional Commission presentation.
I just want to say to everybody in the room how lucky you are to live in Grayson County. I got to drive across Whitetop and I came from Abingdon today, and what a beautiful, beautiful. All of you for that. I'm here to report about the Grayson County Child Care Task Force, and to also tell you about some steps forward that have been made since the last time I spoke back in March. So I was here on March 9th and spoke to you all about the work of the Child Care Task Force that Grayson County has had for a couple of years, and really to talk about a concern that came up this year related to having a permanent place for one particular program, but long-term to have a child care program that had a dedicated space that could last over time. Since I spoke to you all on the 9th, just immediately after that, I got a very similar request from Mr. Watson over in Carroll County, and also from at that same meeting, Nicole Hare, the executive director of the Mount Rogers Regional Partnership. And they asked me to come and talk about childcare as well, because everyone's having the same struggle that you all are having, that there's not enough of it. There's not enough space. And across the Twin County region, you all have about 90% of children in your region have both parents working, but only about 20% of those children have access to any kind of early education opportunities. And that information is in the brief that I gave you all prior to the meeting tonight. But I just think that's a really interesting number. So that means there's about 550 children that are unserved in this region, counting Grayson County, City of Galax, and Carroll County all together. So immediately what occurred out of that was that the Twin County Brasida board asked me to prepare a presentation of what it might look like to have one single staff person who is dedicated to the work of developing childcare specifically for this area. You have that in your packet for tonight. I did put together a proposal as if that person would work in the United Way office and be managed out of that office, but would live in this county and work remotely. So here I assume that there would be a dedicated staff, one FTE with full benefits, which we have a very nice benefits package. And also then a 2.5% COLA for year 2 of this project, because I gave you a 2-year project. So we'd have plenty of time to get the work done. Associated cost with that was about $150,000, which also included a 0.15 FTE for management of that program out of the United Way office. And the thing that I think will actually move us forward is some funding behind starting new programs. So there's a piece there about family day home licensure. So about $25,000 there proposed for 4 family day homes. The startup costs associated with that and paying for their licensure, any kind of materials that they might need to try to help them get started. And then there's a plan there to develop a plan and funding behind startup funds for childcare facilities. So a full-fledged facility that would serve more than 12 children outside of a residential structure. So you're getting both your small family day homes, residential structures, where someone's caring for children in their home and their license, and then also then the larger center caring for more children as well. There's some travel in there. Then we looked at what do we need here also to keep this sustainable over time. You're going to need a workforce to work in those childcare centers. So a little bit of work there around internships to create that pipeline for work. 4 internships in the first year and 8 in the second year, which are high school or early year college students who might be interested in working in early care and education long term. And then a little bit of administrative costs, project materials, and things like that. I also gave you an idea about what the United Way investment is in your county, so you can know and understand, what's already being sort of matched for this kind of a project. There's technical assistance there for the measurement and improvement system that is a statewide initiative, which is coordinated out of the United Way office in Abingdon. Market analysis and research, which we talked about again the last time I was here. Had a market analysis back in 2020, and we do have those ready to go again for 2023. We have all the data collected and we're putting those together right now. We should have them in the summer. We do have specific services for facilities who serve infants and toddlers. So there's a match there. We do a lot of work with the community task force. There's a lot of just coordinating of people and events and things like that. Our staff time and coming and taking part in that task force. You also have already in the county, in the Twin County region, about $540,000 already awarded for mixed delivery. That is a state-funded program that matches public and private partnerships to provide tuition assistance to families in need, so that they're served in a local childcare center. So there's already 39 slots awarded in this area. And with this potential expansion, you would see about $379,000 going into family day homes and $370,000 into licensed centers. That's proposed, of course, that is assuming that mixed delivery funding continues. We expect a large expansion this year, but we're waiting on state approval. We're also doing a lot of developmental screening for children and other workforce supports to get your childcare staff trained, hired, recruited, and into centers. So estimated investment for the Twin County area was about $300,000 over 2 years. Now, when I brought this to the Bracita board, obviously, we're looking at 3 localities, so that funding would be split across 3 localities, so $50,000 a year for 2 years. And then that project estimated match is about 2.7 a year for that project. So I think that's a lot of bang for your buck. I also gave you some information related to the cost of not having childcare. In a childcare desert like the Twin County region is, the cost of the gap of childcare has a lot of economic burden. That means families can't work. It means you're not getting taxes from people that are working. You're also not getting the spending power of a 2-person working household. You don't have your businesses up and running at their full capacity because they don't have the staff to do that. So there's a lot of loss of tax revenue there. For the state of Virginia, over 10 years, they're projecting a $2 to $3 billion loss over 10 years, just based off of the residual burden of not having this available childcare, which equates down to about $41,000 to $63,000 per child. So if you take that number, your 550 children that are unserved in this region, and you multiply that by $41,000, it's about $22 million that could be saved or put back into your county for this $50,000 over 2-year investment potentially. So I just wanted to share that with you all and to let you know, when I brought this to the Galax City Council, I was invited to bring this proposal after I presented at the Bracita board. And the Galax City Council did make a motion to refer this project back to the Bracita board for review and additional work. So I've come tonight to present it to you and to ask the same of you, that you consider letting the Bracita board do some more investigation on this work to see, is it necessary? Is it worth the value of your funds? Is there another organization you would rather have to represent you other than United Way? I put this together as if United Way would host this person who would drive this work, but it obviously could be done by your board or, City of Galax. If you had a person who could manage that whole person out in that office. And we're not saying that we're the only people that can do it, but we do know that we're well positioned to help with this work. So with that said, I'll ask if there's any questions about that. And I have one more thing to tell you. So I just want to give you,
Mr. Ed, I get it.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so when you say unserved, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So you have 680 children in this county who are under age 5 with two working parents, or with every parent in the home working. So there's about 680 of those. You only have 130 childcare slots in this region. So that's how we get to that number. So you've got about 550 children who are unserved.
So do we know why they're unserved? Could it be that the parents choose to stay home?
There could be that level of choice. They could be in unlicensed care. I think we talked a little bit about that the last time I was here. You know, their grandma's keeping them, or they're in a family day home setting that's not licensed, and we can't capture that in our data. So there is likely some of that occurring. So obviously I would encourage you to open a 550 slot center, you know, because that would be every child. So, but we're talking, you know, maybe 100 slots that would significantly impact the number of children that could be served and the number of people that could get back to work in the region.
So the unserved folks, so a lot of, we can't account for the ones we don't know because they're not captured in the data.
Correct.
But it could be that they're homeschooled.
Could be.
And those numbers I think are going up in light of all the school systems. So for your family day home licensure, how many folks were in that home? How many kids can they take in?
They can have up to 12 under the current licensure in Virginia. They can have 12 children in a family day of mixed age groups.
So the provider for that home would be eligible for up to, I guess, $6,250 in forgivable. Well, $5,000 that would be forgivable loan, and $1,250. That stipend, is that for the folks that run the home, or is that for the assistants?
So that would be for, let me just get to that page really quick. Yes, that would be for, there are some things that we can't do for them. They have to do it themselves. We can help them, we can guide them, but giving them that incentive to go all the way through the process of filling out all the paperwork and getting all of the inspections that they have to get and those kinds of things. And then the $5,000 in forgivable loans would be once they get their licensure and they get to that point, to help them staff that, to provide the materials and the necessary activities for children to participate in that program. So it gets them started. It gets them through the licensure process to their license and enough materials to get started.
And your funding for it is to fill.
Correct. There needs to be someone who is here locally who's looking for those people who are caring for children in their home or people who might want to. So recruiting those folks, connecting with them, helping them through that process, guiding them through the steps of what to do.
So you say house, would they be housed in Grayson or out of Galax?
So I think the program would be the position itself would be remote. So they would live somewhere in the Twin County region and work through that based off this proposal from the Abingdon office of United Way, Southwest Virginia, but they would work remotely. They would live and work here. They're going to get broadband. It's going to happen for everybody.
Okay, I appreciate it. Good place.
Okay.
To make sure I understand what she's asking. Question number one is essentially funding positions to do this program. But the more immediate request is for the CETA to continue to study it. Do I have that right?
Yes, so the motion that was made after the presentation at the Galax City Council was to refer it back to the Reseda Board for further discussion. So that's really what I'd like for you all to consider tonight is to, consider this yourself as that 1/3 of that total amount of funding, but also to continue to think about that as a regional project through using the Reseda Board as your kind of convening body.
So you're asking us not for funding tonight, but to support further refinement of your recommendation.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, behind communication infrastructure, childcare makes number 2 priority for the county, so I support her recommendation.
The form of a motion to.
I didn't want to cut off any other comments from board members, but if we're ready to that, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation.
Second. Further discussion? Okay.
So if the Reseda Board is asking for this, do they not have the authority to provide you or are they just doing the study? I'm not clear.
I don't know the answer to that question. I just know that when I brought it to Galax City, that was their recommendation, was to send it back to the Reseda Board. So that's what I came to present to you, to tell you about and see if that was something that you were willing to do as well.
We're going to ask for some clarity from staff. Some clarity on that. On the, if the Reseda is doing the funding or. Is that what you?
I'm curious to know that would the funding come out of the Reseda?
I think that each locality would provide $50,000 per year, which would be 1/3 of the cost of the total project.
Okay.
I think we can speak to that.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
Any further?
Yes. On my motion, what I understood is that we're approving her recommendation to refer this back to Reseda for further study. My motion is not to appropriate any funds towards this at this time. Is that what you understood the motion to be?
Yes.
That's what I understood it to be. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, I think the transfer is going to be.
I want to be clear on the funding because if we don't have the funding, I don't know what we would keep kicking the can down the road in hopes of getting $1,000 when we've got EMS issues that we need to fund. That's just my take.
Any further? If not, then it's for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Same.
No.
All okay. All opposed. Alternate. Yeah. We're not spending any money. I don't see why we're getting research, so the chair will be out. Thank you.
Can I give you one more little update? We did, just to let you know, we talked a lot about space for the Igniting Futures program. They have secured space. It is in Galax. And they have partnered with another organization to secure space inside the Blue Ridge Eye Care building in the lower level that will serve a number of students beyond what they're currently serving. So you'll see an increase in the number of children served in the region because of that partnership. And that's directly come out of the task force that you all have created. So kudos to you all for that, because that is been a huge need. And I know it's not directly in Grayson County, but I do think it'll serve the families of Grayson. Thank you all.
I know we still have right much on the agenda, but we're in about 2 hours into this, and so the chair is going to call recess, and we'll try to reconvene at 8 o'clock. So we'll recess. They should have.
Thinking thing.
I'll be okay. You bet.
Not the one. You can have screen. Stop. People retired.
And any of the conversation with all the places, child exploitation stuff going on around the country. Is that because it's involved in kind of
Like, there's some ordinances we passed that were in certain places like Texas. What's what we found.
They're like going on your side. Yeah. We'll just do it out there.
So yeah, just this information and
Well, he's got glasses.
All of that's coming out. I mean,
He can see, I mean, he's okay.
now I've seen enough on houses have here. And it happened to have the survivor. That's great. I didn't know what it might be. Important to us.
Yeah, follow his code.
I was out in attorney networks and stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
It wasn't because
Oh, I know.
It's the same memory, it's the same. People's
Really? That's all. If I had those. And I mean. They just like. Some of these fires, so big and heavy. It's okay.
So when there's.
It's like, well, what is okay, this is where I was. Right, I was already. So I got to go on. But and I was calling it. Whatever. So I apologize.
And it also. People involved. Very bare.
Obviously, one like stuff today, so. But anyway. You know, we were out to get you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's fine. So sorry. But you're not here.
Oh. Hey, how come you got that good cup from Swift was here? I was here first. I didn't get it. That's the first one here. I'm just keeping it warm. I was gonna call for an appeal of that.
That's why.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You're not sitting there.
That's probably your starting.
He's none of this, he brought it.
They say.
Yeah.
Did you?
I see you, main man, that's right. Got brains. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about him.
Well, most folks.
You get the brain here. Or is that your age? He just showed up. Feel sorry.
This time I'll call the meeting back to order. Patients. Our next reports presentation to request Mr. Stidham, Baywood Community Project. Good to have you with us.
My name is Jordan Stidham. Here representing a few companies in partnership on consulting for the Baywood School Project. The handout that you all have in front of you was the initial draft of the proposed aerial view of what it. So the idea here is that we're going to take this draft to the community and ask them what their input is, what their feedback is, what they want to see there. And we had that meeting, I believe, this past Monday at Baywood Elementary School. And so the way the schedule will work is we'll go to the community and come back to the board, go to the community, back to the board, and then we'll have a final draft after that. So just to quickly go over the original draft here, we'll start down at Old Baywood Road, which is going to be in the top left corner. Down in the flat there, the original proposal was to put in a youth field that would support Pee-wee football, soccer, just general community play. And then as you go up the hill there, you'll see bleachers built into the hillside so that parents can watch the practice and games. You climb further up the hill, you'll see there's a sort of like a flower meadow there. Reason being is that's a septic drain field, so nothing can be built on it structurally. And the idea behind that is to minimize maintenance. So the architects that are working on this project, they do normal architectural work, but a lot of their work is also an overall landscape architectural design. You look at the pictures on the right-hand side, the top left is an example of this meadow. So the way they build these flowers in is they all grow in successive life cycles, so that that entire field there would only have to be mowed once a year. It would essentially maintain itself through the life cycle of the flowers. And as you go up the hill there towards the school, there's a proposed picnic shelter, a little brown square that overlooks that field and the flowers. And then the outside of the school would be turned into a sort of larger patio area, just for the community to hang out and just kind of spend time with their kids there at the playground and the soccer field. In the old, what used to be basketball / tennis court, court down there, the very initial design was to refurbish that to a basketball court and a tennis / pickleball court for community use. But during our original draft phase, the architects came in and they were concerned about the houses around it and the noise level that that would bring. And so they had changed it to a community garden. After speaking to the community, I believe just about every house around that was in attendance. And they had made the statement that they would rather have the basketball and pickleball court there because the noise wouldn't bother them. And they would rather have kids playing in their backyard like that. If you go down a little bit more on the little yellow cutout there, that comes from top right picture. It's like an outdoor workout facility for the community. And if you go up a little bit, you'll see the little blue area there. That is an outdoor playground. And that's actually used to support one of the options inside of the building, which I'll get to. And you'll notice that there's a walking track that goes all the way around the property. It's that little white line that you see that kind of swerves in and out based on the contour of the land. And so the upper part here, that's currently a parking lot, will be maintained as a parking lot. The parking down by the school will be converted into all ADA compliant parking. And the way that this property is currently designed, on the bottom left side of the property, below the playground there, you can see there's a semicircle drop off. That connects to that walking track. It goes down to what was originally posed as a community garden, but that is sloping to the point of being ADA compliant. So individuals with wheelchairs and different things like that are able to access all of the grounds. So we go further out into the field. The initial proposal was to put housing in the field out there. Now this was going to be just standard market housing. We were throwing around the idea between either single family homes to be sold or market rate duplexes to be rented. But after feedback from the community, the idea right now is sort of to take that community garden and put the original basketball and the pickleball court back there, move the garden up to that field, And a couple of the community members stayed afterwards and had pitched the idea to me that the rest of that field, they wanted to see some type of agricultural education go in there. So think like a 4-H type facility where they can have tech and the extension office and 4-H come in and teach kids through FFA and things like that about raising agriculture. They can have these little ag shows and things like that. So that's currently the idea that I'm going to be going with after your all's feedback, is to look at switching that out to a community garden / educational farm agricultural type area. And so the current or the initial proposal inside of the school, if everyone's familiar with the layout of the inside of the school, what used to be the cafeteria, kitchen, the gym, and the stage. The initial proposal there was that that would essentially stay in the same layout, but we would update the kitchen to be a commercial kitchen. So that would become a community center to be used by basically anyone in the county. It could be used as fundraisers for the EMS, for the Rotary Club. You can have a birthday party. If you, let's say you run a small farm and you make jams and jellies, you could use that commercial kitchen and the kitchen would be licensed to produce those products. And so that idea went over pretty well in the community. There was positive feedback on that. The lower part of the school, from the hallway down past the principal's office and the old library, would be converted to support a pre-K daycare combination. And the initial talk has been with potentially partnering with Rooftop and some type of private daycare system. So the idea is that if a pre-K goes in there, and let's say we have kids that may not qualify for the pre-K services, they could then go to the private daycare, still share the same resources. And the upstairs original pitch was a small business and nonprofit incubator. Essentially, we would convert the classrooms into micro offices to promote people to start their small businesses, or the home offices of, say, their contracting company, to be housed in Baywood. And so that's the overall original pitch. And now I'm going to go through some of the community feedback that was brought up. So one thing that was brought up was, with the amount of involvement with childcare, things like that, one of the big concerns was that we include security as a part of that. So some type of security on all the doors, like you would see at the high school, and also exterior cameras around the playground. And then another thing that was brought up again was the well, the septic, things like that. And our engineers from Hurt and Profit are going to be testing those things. They're going to be looking at what volume can it support, what's the health of it, does it need to be drilled, can it use a water filtration system? So all of that will be covered in the engineering report from Hurt and Profit. And some of the suggestions that were added, as I said, was the moving of the garden, adding an educational farm component. Someone had asked if there would be a possibility to add in an adult daycare. So for individuals that are taking care of elderly, and during the day, if they're going to work or out or something, they would have an option to take their parents or wherever the elderly individual would be. Another thing that was brought up was to include something there for veteran service. Now, there wasn't a specific idea, but the people that had talked about that, I gave out my email and told them, if you come up with a specific idea or you have an idea in mind, let us know. We want to include the community's feedback. And so I'm waiting to hear back on the actual veteran specific service they would like to throw in. And then a couple of the main concerns were the funding of the project. And the discussion was that how much of it's going to be tax funded versus grant funded. And so I explained to the group there that a part of this process and what the county will receive from us in the end is a estimation of what we think the project will roughly cost. as well as a listing of all of the grants that these would fall under. Because each component of this is going to put you into a different grant category. You've got your overall grants, like your CDBGs, vibrant communities. But then, you've got recreation specific grants. You've got childcare specific grants. So once we work through these edits, what the community wants, part of that final result will be a list of all of the grant categories that we can find, all of the contacts that we have through DHC, Virginia Housing, things like that. And so in that packet, all of that will be included. Our goal is ultimately to try and fund all of this with grants, but grants are competitive, there are application processes. And so as a part of that, there could potentially be some tax portion, but like, I think someone had asked the question, how much? And the answer is, I'm not sure. I don't know until we get further into the drafts of what the potential grants would be. But our goal is to present enough grants to cover the cost plus margin in case some get denied, we don't get full funding on some of them. And another concern that was brought up was, how do we build in sustainability to this project? So the concern was, okay, let's say we get grants to fund the entire project. How do we ensure that 4 or 5 years down the road, it's not costing the county more money than it is benefit? And so the structure that we're working out inside of the building is that each component would have a leasing or a rental portion to it. So the community center, the commercial kitchen, there would be a rental portion of that. So if you want to use the kitchen, you would lease it for the day or however long you need it. The child care center would be a lease with the organizations that are going to run it, because the county wouldn't run a child care center. They would lease it out to Rooftop or a private company or something of that nature. And so the discussion was that within the development and the research on this project, sustainability needs to be considered. But how do we fund the maintenance and the electric and the internet bill and so on and so forth? Make sure I've got all of this mentioned out. There was something mentioned about the potential flooding down in the bottom field there by Old Baywood Road. And so we're going to add that to our engineers list to ensure that they look at that creek that flows down there and we address the potential flooding. There was actually 2 things that Mitch and I had actually talked about after the fact. Was in the very first proposal of Baywood, there was a health clinic and a tech center discussed. When we sat down with the community this time, as the discussions progressed, and we talked about, what would it look like to have a family health clinic? And several members of the community had stated that they would love to have a family clinic in there with lease restrictions as to what could be done in said clinic. So that's something to consider of, do we want to address that? Do we want to add that in the draft and go back down similar road? But one thing to think about is the original organization that was going to do that has now built their clinic in Freeze. And so that would require finding a new partner in that field. Was some positive feedback on having that with restrictions. And then the upstairs initial pitch that we have for the SBA for the small business and the nonprofit, a lot of the community came back with, they wanted to revisit the idea of a tech training center up there or some type of educational training center up there. Now, again, one thing we'll have to address with that, if that's the route we go, is a lot of the original partner companies have pulled out of that. And so we'll have to address, or the county will have to address new partnerships if that's the route we decide to go.
On the lines of the healthcare, I didn't comment on that. We know it's trying, and basically our investment in that has been $60,000 for an X-ray machine I think we might have been funded through the EDA, if I'm not mistaken. Or did that come out of county funds, this EDA, which, let me be clear, EDA is county funds. It's just another account that we put tax dollars in. Childcare facility, along with the healthcare. And if you go back to minutes of the meeting where we discussed that with Priority Health, he did say there was a potential there for drug treatment if they so choose. So I know that was a point of contention then. Seemed like that might have come up the other night. And so I've got a couple of questions, but I like your plans and your ideas, and I know you've got a proven record of getting some of these things done in other localities. Would it be possible for the county to turn the property over to these community organizations and back out of it, so we don't have that tax liability hanging over our heads? Because quite honestly, we've got a proven track record of failure when it comes to projects. And we having to increase taxes to support these projects. And that's why the community gets upset when they hear of a new building project going on. Building, there was discussion and public comment in some of the meetings, and one of my colleagues did say that would potentially affect the levy. With all the other challenges that we have, that's why there's some contention, because not only the folks that live next door to the school would be affected by a tax increase, it would be the entire county, whether they live in Oak Creek or Baywood or Freeze or White Top. We all would share that deal. So would it be possible that the county could submit these types of properties to an organization and just let us back out of the development business? And would that be beneficial or even an option?
Well, my understanding, and the county attorney may know better than I do, but I guess a big contingency here is that the deed of this property does have a clawback feature on it. One of the initial pushbacks, just as an example, if you see on your original map, you've got that housing out there. When that idea was brought up, the point was made that as a part of that original deed, that clause of if it ceases to ever have an educational component, the county must remove the school, which in and of itself is going to cost millions of dollars to tear that school down and haul it off. And then the property goes back to the heirs. So if we were to build housing on that property, and let's say, because the county, I don't think, is in the business of maintaining rental properties, it were to be sold off to someone else, you couldn't separate the property, because down the road, let's say that clawback clause comes into effect. Well, now someone else owns a portion of it. So my concern with what you're saying is, how would that work with the deed and that clause that falls into that?
Have you actually saw the deed where it says if we property, we would have to tear down the school?
I have not read the deed. That's just been going off of what I've been told.
Our attorney is fairly familiar with the deed.
There was some confusion about this time last year.
Right.
The confusion was that someone had been provided a deed that absolutely did have a clawback provision. The problem was that was for a different school building, a mile or two away from this building. So that clawback provision is not in Baywood.
So if that deed does not include that feature, then that's definitely something you all can consider. The thing you'll have to figure out is, who would you want to manage that? Because again, I don't know the legality of splitting up one building into multiple ownerships.
Well, I'm not suggesting I'm suggesting we turn the property over to the community organization. Search and rescue, and then let them partner with you guys to get things done, and it kind of backs us out of this. That was just, I just wondered if that was an option.
Yeah, so that's certainly an option, in clarifying the deed. That would be an option. It would just depend on their appetite for that. And I believe all of those organizations you just listed should qualify to pull grants. Some of the grants may be specific to localities, but the county could apply for grants on their behalf. You all could be the administrators of said grant that would flow through. So that would be an option if that's what the county wants to address.
I really appreciate the work you're putting into this to hash all this out, but it's real important. Especially because there's already getting off to this start here that there's an issue with understanding which deed is which as far as the clawback goes. Because last year I ran around with, I guess, the wrong deed because the other deed was in former county administrator's office for 5 years. And you gave us a presentation last year on these same lines of doing potentially these things at each abandoned school. And when I mentioned that to my colleagues, I was told it was a pipe dream. Anything too good to be true is usually too good to be true. And I'm not being the skeptic because I've seen you do these things in other communities. So I know it's a possibility. And I think it still is here, but I just want us to move forward with caution when it comes to increasing taxes. Because I can't get behind or support anything that's gonna take us in that direction with the other challenges that we have right now. And I just wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, so one thing that I will point out is the work we're doing now is not something that will move forward into building. So you all will get a full packet at the end that says, here's all the community feedback, here's the design, the layout. We're going to do case studies of other school conversions. Here's all your funding sources. Here are all of our contacts that we know that can help you with funding. And that'll give it to you all. And then at that point, it's up to the county. You either want to proceed, you want to apply for the grant, see what you get, you want to hand it off to Baywood, EMS, or whatever the case may be. So this is doing all the pre-legwork and the research and finding the grants to hopefully alleviate that concern of saying, okay, it's going to cost, and this is completely a made up number, no basis in this. It's going to cost $5 million. Our goal would be to find a potential of at least 150% of that in potential grants. So if we come back and say it could cost $5 million, I would like to have on our list at least $7.5 million. So we're trying to address that up front with your concern.
So you'd be over requesting grants to try to make sure we get 100%.
Yeah, because no grants go through all the way. Back in April, I submitted a grant for, I want to say probably like $4 million.
Right.
I'm only anticipating getting about $1.5 million out of it. So we always try and find 50% more than what we need, assuming that you're going to get rejections.
So, and we would have that in writing. So when you finish the project, that would be part of the presentation, X amount of grants.
Yeah, it would be the source. So for example, one grant would be CDBG through DHCD. Here's your application deadline. Here's where you find your application. Here's how much it can be for. Like it would be everything you need to know about that grant. And then the next one might be the tobacco grant for tourism. The next one might be a recreation grant, but those will all be listed out. The due dates, the amount, who funds it, all that stuff. But the goal is for us to give you this packet that's essentially a roadmap of yes, this makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. So that you all can make an educated decision with community feedback of how to proceed.
I'm just trying to use caution. I know that the town got into a little bit of a mess down there because they were told free labor, grant monies for materials, and now they're probably on the hook for around $1 million. So because they bought in because it sounded good. I just don't want us to make that same mistake. And I know you have a proven track record, so I don't think we're headed down that road.
Yeah. So generally most of the grants that we look at, as long as the performance is done, there's no payback period. So sometimes grants will be deferred. Like a lot of the housing grants that I get are deferred for 15 years.
as long as I perform the 15 years, then it's forgiven. But if at any point in that 15 years I fail to, then I have to pay it back.
Well, I appreciate your input.
The update, one of the original concepts with Grayson Regional Library wanted to have a community branch there in Baywood, somewhere in that school, old school. Is that on the table? Was any part of the discussion of that? I think the board is still interested in, with Grayson Regional Board, Library Board is still interested in that. Is that a possibility to add to the concept?
Yeah, so I can add it to the next draft and present it to the community. That's a big part of why I'm here, is to see what the board wants to see added in as well, because we want this to be a partnership between Baywood and the county. We want everybody to be contributing together, but I will add that to the next draft and give it to the community for feedback.
Good job.
Thank you, Jordan. Next, move on to resolution in support of the Queen County E911 Commission radio and radio equipment maintenance and programming.
So I'll leave this one to you. Resolution to support Twin County E911 Commission radio and equipment maintenance and program. Whereas it has come to the attention of the Twin County E911 Commission that unauthorized, unlicensed person have reprogrammed certain emergency services radio equipment. As a reprogramming of these radios has made it almost impossible for dispatchers and other emergency services personnel to communicate with the agencies using these reprogrammed radios. Whereas this action has the effect of placing citizens and other emergencies personnel safety in danger. Commission this 10th day of April. Change date. By motion that anyone not licensed for perform radio maintenance and programming and not authorized and approved by the Twin County E911 Commission to perform radio maintenance and equipment for the city of BOS, Twin County, Grayson, County Carroll perform any radio maintenance or radio program or city of BOS, County, Grayson, County, Carroll. Now be resolved. The Grayson County Board of Supervisors does hereby approve and support the action taken by the Twin County Commission 11th day of May 2023 concerning programming of any radios and radio equipment services agencies and radio equipment located in special centers within the jurisdictions.
Can say a little bit, speak to this, Carol, City Galaxy has similar resolutions. This arose out of an incident that occurred with an individual, some radios, and it caused a glitch in the radio communications, and there was a time the tech had time getting the radio opportunity tech, but getting the radios back up and making the system safe. The Twin Counties now has their very own radio tech. The call outs was costing us a fortune. Expensive call outs, power grades and stuff. And so we looked into it. It was cheaper to have our own radio tech, and it's got everybody on the same sheet of music, and hopefully, but that's kind of where this came out of. And the commission, originally forced this and was behind it, and then Carroll County adopted it, I believe, the same day as a request that came out of from the commission. This want the chair to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution. Okay. If there's any further discussion, If not, just do a roll call vote. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Hobby. Mr. Bill. Mr. Fan. Chair also aye. Thank you. Next item will be board appointments.
Yes, sir. So, Rec Advisory Committee, 3-year term, at-large rep, John Alexander resigning from committee at the end of May. A new appointee will fill the remainder of his term, which expires 12/31/23.
Do we have anybody that? Are those at our districts?
That's it. I mean, John Fence. I thought I read that.
You want to search for a recommendation on that?
Yeah, and my initial thought is I'll talk to the senior advocacy committee about it because, John kind of was representing that, part of our citizenry, and so I'll see what we can do there. So I got it.
All right, thank you.
Next, two more, sir. VCWA, 4-year term, Water Authority, Chris Morton, Illinois, wishes to serve. New appointee's term will begin 7/1/23 and expire on 6/30/26.
Is that also by we kind of divvy those up? And I guess that would fall in Mr. Anderson's. Mr. Moore, yeah, would be your district.
That'd be my district.
Oh, is that you? I'm sorry, my apologies.
There's only one from the county that's on that board, and you go to it as well. The Paul Boyle guy. So I don't think that's a district thing.
Okay.
Is Chris live up there? He probably wouldn't want me to say it, so.
Okay. So
It's more tax serving on that board. That water board. This been serving on it long.
It's not a district supervisor issue.
That's be through Grayson County. The other one can be whoever the board chooses.
How's the system?
And I'll visit with Chris and see what type of person would be a good fit for that and come back.
Right. Next,
WCC use term in 6/30/23 and then reads as well as sir.
So that being the only appointment that we consideration, the chair would entertain a motion to.
One else expressed interest in that person.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Chair also aye. Okay, request for a public hearing to fiscal year 2023-24 budget. On that, other than, do we have a date? Okay, next year, okay. Let's basically call necessary, like timelines or anything, okay. So, Chair, entertain a motion for public hearing to occur on the next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be Okay. In favor, signify by saying aye. Chair also aye. Okay, request public hearing for proposed roadway abandonment, Camp Dickenson Ln. Black.
Chairman, I come to you tonight with a request for the board to consider a public hearing. Recently, we posted signage on the road. The request of Mr. Gomez, and if I may, I'll just read my letter to the board. Camp Dickenson Director Anthony Gomez contacted the Grayson County Administrator in a letter requesting the Grayson County Board of Supervisors consider the abandonment of a section of Route 640 for the Virginia state line of Grayson County to 239.18 feet for a distance of approximately 0.0453 miles, citing that there was no public necessity and is no longer necessary to be part of a secondary highway. During the February regular scheduled board meeting, staff brought the request to the Board of Supervisors for consideration. A motion to approve the request for intent to abandon was unanimously approved. And staff then proceeded with the advertisement in the local newspaper and placement of signage along the route under consideration as required by section 33.2909 of the Code of Virginia, abandonment of highway, landing, and railroad crossings procedure. Subsequently, staff has received numerous phone calls voicing concern regarding the closure. Therefore, I am requesting the Board of Supervisors consider this a formal request to advertise for public hearing and to notify the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources of such hearing for the June regular scheduled board meeting.
It's okay, Chair. The numerous phone calls that you've gotten, can you give us an idea of what they were concerned about because the government dead end and Camp Dickenson property?
So it's my understanding from two gentlemen that have called me. This was an old ferry, and it was an access point from Freeze to Galax through the Old Town District. And that is the way that they originally got across. One was very concerned because it was very dear to him. He grew up there. The other one also was concerned about the fishermen. And I understand that there's about 50 names on a petition now. So they wanted us to look into not abandoning that specifically for to make sure that there is not a public access and that there's not an actual road not properly get abandoned through there. I have reached out already to VDOT and already to the Department of Conservation and Wildlife. Both have said there has never been an abandonment there. I was told by one that there was a particular person who headed up they had already been a request for this abandonment to happen many years ago. I asked VDOT and they have no record of that. Game and Wildlife say it is not an access port, which was told to me that the fishermen use that to access. Mr. Gomez says there's no records at the Holston conference or in his office of such.
So essentially, at the end of the road is trespassing to walk to the road.
Yes, and currently, until I find something different, that is such.
Chair, entertain a motion for a public hearing. Call for vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. So aye.
Thank you.
Next, the Virginia Stormwater Management Program Agreement for Wildwood. Mr. Wood.
Chairman, this is Mr. Grayson for the administration of the Virginia Stormwater Management Program. Galax is a licensed Virginia state or Virginia stormwater participant that can manage this program. And so therefore proceed as Carol Grayson and Galax. They're asking Galax to do this for them. administer these. Person is, they do not receive any payments. I see if we can do it. They can administer the program. So that's all this is the jurisdiction has to give permission for them to do it. Authorize. Any program for Baywood.
Bring that in. I reviewed it if you, but in a nutshell, as Nick pointed out, like the podium would that be better or? As Nick pointed out, ALAX has adopted its own Virginia stormwater management program, so they do their reviews in-house. Most counties in Virginia do not have to adopt one. Grayson County, Carroll County, DEQ administers the VSMP for us. The concern that Reseda had was just to move those approvals along more quickly when we have economic development prospects or actually purchasers who are there who want to do work in the Wildwood Commerce Park, rather than the delays that might occur from sending to DEQ for review. Couldn't KLAX do the review in-house, approve it in a much more expeditious manner? The statute does allow that to be delegated. All the property lies in Carroll County. So Carroll and GALAX are the primary signatories, but it does require the approval of other relevant localities. And so Grayson, as a member of Reseda, is, in my view, a relevant locality that should just review and give its consent. So we've crossed every T and dotted every I, but it's largely just to speed up the administrative process of getting those stormwater plans reviewed.
Entertain a motion. Okay. Good. Everything vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Carol, so aye. Let's now to county administrative report.
That's for 2 hours deep and official opening is on the 27th. The seniors are having an open on the May 19th. Still, and there's a lot of work still to do up there, but they're doing a great job. Water's in the pool. It's on, so they'll be ready in time for the opening. We had a community meeting in White Top on 5/4/23. Myself, Mitch, Drive, and Mr. Fantlin, and spoke with all the citizens in White Top. Had a good discussion about where we're at with broadband and kind of moving forward. So they had a meeting on 5/8 with Baywood on the Baywood project. There was about 50-ish. The only other thing, sir, is that we did receive, Governor Youngkin announced that Grayson County received $20,000 from the Virginia Tourism Corporation Marketing Leverage Program. We received a $20,000 grant to use for marketing Grayson gravel for those. Grayson County partnered with Whitewater and Grayson Highland General Store and then supply $20,500 in matching funds, which it's going to be used to have a tour of 64 social media adventure cyclists, and we'll ride the route start to finish, and then they'll be highlighting the route in the media. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Now we bring this to our registered speakers on public comment.
believe some of these may be people who were here on, who was, Gary Wilson, I'm pretty sure he was here, he's on the 6-year plan, so that was, and, so the next speaker, the registered to speak is, Tracy Cummins.
Sure, we need to, it's got on their register speakers. Already spoken.
No. Okay, well, since they're around here, yeah, let's keep it. Ellie? I'm sorry, Tracy. Thank you all going. That was the child. Yeah, he was speaking to the sign. Yeah, okay, that's it. So we got that taken. And next sir would be Stephen Bailey.
I think they're both on that.
Stephen Bailey. Yeah, we can just confirm out a lot that way to make sure we don't miss anybody.
Chairman, I think they've been taken care of through the earlier discussion.
Okay. Grayson.
I, Tracy Cummins, 743 Powder Mill Road, Oak Creek, Virginia, living the life in the Christmas tree chemicals. I wanted to remind you that I spoke last month about me being pro-life, why I'm pro-life, the experiences I have had with doctors telling me why I should abort my children and them being wrong. I'm used to fighting for life. I'm pro-life for all of our children. I'm pro-life for the mothers. I'm pro-life for their fathers. And I'm also pro-life for people with medical difficulties because I've had to fight for that too. So basically, I'm used to fighting for life. So I want to encourage everyone that is here tonight to fight for life. We are for this ordinance. I say we, I know some of you are. We're for this Sanctity of Life ordinance in keeping Grayson County God's country, literally God's country. But I want to encourage you even more. So Lynn Roberts and I with Mike Montgomery have talked about starting a pro-life pregnancy resource center, but I don't even want to stop it there. I think there are a lot of people in our community that might even need help paying their rent or finding a babysitter or whatever. There's so much to life. It does start in the womb, but it doesn't end until we're put in the grave. So I want to be pro-life for every single human being that God has given us through conception. And I want local churches to join me in that. So Lynn, Mike, and I are going to hold a meeting of interest for a pro-life resource center here in Grayson County. We're going to meet at First Baptist Church Tuesday. I've got a picture of it. Tuesday, June 6th at 7 p.m. First Baptist Church right here in Independence. My phone number, 27768-8744. If anybody in your church is interested in looking into this and being on the board to decide what we do, what we're going to stand for, how exactly we're going to make this happen, please give me a call. I want to encourage you to pass this along to your churches, to anybody in the community that's interested in being pro-life. And I want to encourage you with this scripture that pure religion, true religion of God the Father is by helping the orphan and the widows. So I want to encourage you all to help me stand in life from conception to the grave. Thank you.
Mike Jackson.
Thank you.
I live, I'm like, I have a 348 Rock Quarry Lane in L2. I'm up on the side of the mountain. And I need to see if the board could help me with gigaby. I have health issues. I have two devices, one of which is I have congestive heart failure and had open heart surgery and bypass and all that kind of stuff. I have a device that sits in my bedroom that has to connect to Wi-Fi to send back daily information to my doctors. And what I have, second is a pulmonologist for breathing. And then I'm at fall risk. I've been in the emergency room multiple times before I fall. I wear the yellow socks. So I was trying to look at getting one of those devices that detect that when you fall, that if you have an emergency, can get a hold of you. But it needs Wi-Fi, so I can't get it. So I was told about until 2021 that you were getting the gigabit, but I was a little bit outside the 1,000 feet limit so I'd get Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is now, I've tried to connect it. It goes over my house. It's the other side of the valley, so it's not available. I have tried the satellite, and the satellites only work at 1 megasecond at my house. And so I can't use it. So if you could anyway contact the people, see if there's another way to get it at me, I would appreciate it. Help me out.
This again, so we can.
Pardon?
You can sure address.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. Okay.
Right. We're back. I'm Becky Kafka, 1785 Sugar Camp Lane, Independence. And I'm from Preserve Grayson. I have a brief anecdote that illustrates both the absurdity of our pesticide enforcement and the absolute abyss that we citizens find ourselves in. On April 24, I heard a helicopter going back and forth practically over my house. I went up on the ridge of my property and took video footage of the helicopter spraying pesticide in an extremely strong wind. In my video, you can see the trees whipping back and forth and hear the roar of the wind. I had difficulty holding my phone steady. It was so strong. Of course, I got a snout full of poison and coughed for 3 days, even though I carefully stayed on my own property. And I felt very, very tired. I noticed the next day that my whole house smelled of pesticide, even though there had been no windows open. So I called a VDOT person in Richmond who's very interested in our predicament here in Grayson. He said he would have our inspector call me. And our inspector for 17 counties called me the next afternoon from Martinsville. And we had a very nice talk, and we agreed that since it was about to rain, there was no sense in him rushing here from Martinsville to take samples. He informed me, however, that the video that I took could not be used in any kind of complaint because of chain of custody. The only video that would be acceptable would be if the inspector took it himself. Now, can you tell me how this is supposed to work? You know, growing up in my dad's family, I always thought of Appalachian people as being so proud and independent. Yet here we are, bullied and intimidated by a giant corporate interest, ignoring something that is obviously and clearly wrong. Maybe some of our taxes should go to an impact study for industrial agriculture. Thank you.
Candace Dickenson.
Candace Stevenson, 615 Hines Branch Road, Elk Creek. I'm going to quote a recent study that was published in NIH, PMC 6765913.
Concluded residents within 600 feet, 50 feet of a straight line from the agricultural spring had significantly higher BMI than those outside of the area. Exposure of organophosphates in female greenhouse workers found that the workers exposed to the organophosphates displayed a significant increase in depression and fatigue compared to those not exposed. In conclusion, the results showed that people living in close proximity to agricultural fields demonstrated negative neurological outcomes in spite of not being directly involved in agricultural activities or active handling of pesticides when compared with people living more than 600 feet from the place. We need that study to be done here. We should not be discussing a sanctuary city for unborn children before discussing a sanctuary city for children and mothers, fetuses, and fathers directly impacted by the chemicals of the increasing Christmas tree industry. Priority number 1 on the 6-year plan should include an impact study. Fields everywhere need to have a sign up that say routine chemicals are sprayed here. So those folks looking for property may decide, like us, who want to establish an organic farm, that they may not choose to buy exactly next to a Christmas tree farm, especially when realtors are not telling buyers. Every bit of this 6-year plan, this impact study, water testing, all of that needs to be paid for by the industry that is draining this county. Hearing numbers like 20,000 acres of pesticide application for Christmas trees, we say it's about time we all decide if we're protectors of nature or protectors of the Christmas tree industry. Tax the trees. Yeah.
I'm Deb Grice, I live in Mount Wilson, and I am treasurer of Preserve Grayson. In February, Preserve Grayson presented a resolution to the board, which had some very important issues pertaining to the expansion of the large corporate agribusiness in our area. Preserve Grayson has been approached by many citizens in Grayson County asking what our organization can do about this massive influx of these mega farms who are contributing to the environmental destruction of our county through spraying of pesticides and herbicides, deforestation, erosion, and water contamination. They want to help preserve the beauty of Grayson County that we live in. Immediate discussion and action with our county leaders is critical to preserve our county as the unique, beautiful place that it is. My question is, have the board reviewed our resolution? And when do you plan to get back with us regarding the resolution? I think you all said like a month that you would get back with us, but no one has heard anything.
Taking some cursory look at the resolution, I think that we have had discussions with the board. We'll certainly take our action to have a type of further on action discussion.
You'll inform us.
Yes.
And we can be involved in those discussions.
Of course.
All right, thank you.
And Stevenson.
Ian Stevenson, 615 Hines Branch Road. And you've heard from my wife a couple of times with the Preserve Grayson. And like she said, we moved to the area back in 2016 to try to do some organic farming and just try to find a healthy way of life. So we never really realized what actually went into the Christmas trees. Now that we did, we tried calling companies, no answers. And we started our own research, had the extension agent officer come to our property, tell us that organic was actually not that much safer than conventional farming. He said he would drink a cup of Roundup in front of us. I think he would actually rescind that statement now with all the data that comes out now with our health. But I'm a home physical therapist in the community. I've seen a really big decline in the health of the population, especially in the last couple of years. But some of the chemicals that they are using, because a lot of times you get the answer that all these things are safe, the FDA has done their job and they've actually told everyone what's going on there. But like one of them is Warhawk, the major ingredient in that's linked to lung cancer. The one is Sniper, that's linked to bladder cancer. Glystar, that's got glyphosate in it. That's a big Roundup that people have probably heard about. But if you look back at the farming techniques that we've used, you follow the timeline of that, you'll see that it was introduced, well, degradation of our land started with the plow. It then got to World War II. We started to have the victory gardens. So if anyone was alive during that time or had stories of that time, you would hear that 45% of our food actually came from backyard gardens, and our health was actually pretty good during that time. You had 4% disease rate in all of the population. Now, by your 16th to 18th birthday as a child in America, you're over 50% have chronic diseases by that time. You've then seen the uptick during the 90s. That was when the glyphosate, or the major ingredient in Roundup, was then used as a desiccant or a dryer of wheat. That's why celiac disease, you have gluten intolerances start. The mid-90s, we saw an explosion of neurological conditions like Parkinson's, fibromyalgia. A lot of people around these Christmas trees do have those symptoms. Because of HIPAA laws, you're not going to get every true testament of how it's affecting the community. But if you actually go into regenerative agriculture, so look at Will Harris down in the White Oak pastures in Bluffton, Georgia, you look at the effects that he's having on his land, the amount of erosion, the amount of chemicals that aren't going into the creeks, the streams, everything around there, it can be done differently. But a lot of times it takes the education of it, because the three main components that I see around here that don't have a problem with chemicals in agriculture, the Christmas trees and everything, either benefit from it financially, just don't know anything about the issues, or they have a family member that works in the industry. But a lot of times I think that we need to come to the community to uplift our health, and that's what's going to have a vibrancy. So we need to look into things like Sedgwick County, Maine, that did actually a food sovereignty bill where they have food sovereignty in their nation or their county. So if there is a time where, times get a little tougher, then we might have a little bit more food security, because it's not really a issue of food production like during the pandemic. It was a middleman to get it there. So hopefully people can start talking now, and we can get people together to have these issues kind of solved or better. Thanks for your time.
Plans, I'll skip down to the bottom. George. Let's see. Either David Osborne.
David Osborne, 248 Mountain View Road, Independence, Virginia. Thank you guys again for everything you do. I think everyone has understood tonight what you got to go through for our county. So thank you for your hard work and dedication to do that. Again, in God we trust. I come to encourage the county again. Please look at our ordinance, make Grayson County a sanctuary for the unborn. Again, I don't want to give you my words, but I'll give you God's words. Proverbs 14:34. And we've heard tonight how Grayson County is blessed financially in every way. But God says righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to any people. We want to trust in God. We need to get back to righteousness. What is righteousness? That which is right with God. What is sin? That which is not right with God. Very simple. Abortion is a sin. God is clear. I'll give you the verse again. Proverbs 6:16, 17. These 6 things that the Lord hate, yea, 7 abomination to him: a proud look, a lying tongue. Number 3, hands that shed innocent blood. There's nothing more innocent than an unborn babe in a mother's womb. Yet we live in a society, if you destroy a eagle's nest, I forget the fine, time of imprisonment, but you can board a baby and they get rich off of it. Righteousness exalts a nation. sin is reproach to any people. I encourage you again, please consider God's word. Look deep in your heart. Deuteronomy 30:19. God says, I'll call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. God says we get to choose whether he blesses us as a nation, which I think he has withdrawn that blessing because of the condition of this nation. But whether or not we continue to be blessed as a county, we get to choose. Therefore, choose life that both you and thy seed may live. I encourage you, please. In God we trust. With what God says, choose life that God can continue to bless. Thank you guys so much again. And none of my church folks here, they're never complaining about me being long-winded again. After you sat here for this one. Thank you.
Where's Mark Dixon?
Greetings. My name is Mark Dickenson, Director with Right to Life of East Texas, and founder of what's called the Sanctuary Cities for the Unborn Initiative. So from Texas, I drove down here from Washington, D.C., which is where I was last. So this ordinance, which has been discussed in the community and just so encouraged already at all the good that has come about just from having the discussion in this community. You guys have a wonderful person over here who's talking about starting a pregnancy resource center that was birthed out of a meeting that we had right here in your city. So that's actually happened across the United States. Other communities and having this discussion have saw a need and met a need of putting a pregnancy resource center in our community. This ordinance technically doesn't outlaw abortion. All this ordinance does is require compliance with federal statutes, which were passed in 1873, which prohibit the mailing and receiving of abortion-inducing drugs and abortion paraphernalia. And so this ordinance really ends up being an issue of, doesn't even come down specifically saying what these statutes mean. There's some disagreement with what these statutes mean. The Biden administration has released an Office of Legal Counsel opinion, and that opinion is a very narrow reading of the statutes. But of course, in Amarillo, Judge Kaczmarek has a very plain reading of statutes. Fifth Circuit panel has a very plain reading of those statutes. And over 20 attorney generals throughout the United States have taken that same reading that Judge Kaczmarek and these other federal judges have taken. So at the end of the day, the question really is, where's the Supreme Court going to side on these federal statutes? Now, I know that you have received a letter from the ACLU, and I've been involved in seeing ordinances passed in 67 cities and 2 counties, been there for every single meeting. And we have heard from the ACLU many times, and every time they have brought a lawsuit, they've lost, or they have withdrawn, which I see that as a loss for them as well. And so we've been victorious so far. The ACLU sued me in a lawsuit regarding the Texas Heartbeat Act. As the only private citizen sued in that went to the Supreme Court of the United States, all 9 justices agreed that the case against me should be dismissed. This ordinance before you has a letter attached to it from Jonathan F. Mitchell, which is a law clerk from Justice Scalia, and he is willing to represent the county at no cost to the county and taxpayers for any litigation that we file as a result from this. I'll be around tonight if anyone has any further questions. Be glad to answer those and talk from our experience. Victory in 67 cities and 2 counties. Thank you so much.
I live at 119 Oracle Summit Circle in Independence. And I'm here tonight speaking as the lead minister of the Oracle Temple, which is a multi-faith church, and maybe the only one in the county, I'm not sure. I'm also here speaking as executive director of the Oracle Institute, which is a charity that works in the global peace movement. And I actually have a good friend here from India. The Honorable E.P. Menon is visiting. But tonight I want to represent those religions that tend to be underrepresented when we talk about right to life or right to choose. The Hindus, the Jews, the Buddhists, the Muslims do not share this minority Christian view that personhood begins at conception. And most Christians don't even hold that view. This is a minority view. It may be the majority view in this county, but it is a minority view in this nation and around the world. And I'm also here representing the atheists who live in our county, who have a very different view as well. So I do want to underscore that most people of faith and most people, period, in the United States of America do not agree with this proposition that personhood starts at conception. Now, the Supreme Court's decision to reverse Roe v. Wade has caused all sorts of confusion, as everyone here knows. But the one thing that we do know is that it now reverts to state law. And in Virginia, abortion is totally legal, according to pretty much the old Roe schemata in terms of first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester. That is the law right now in Virginia. This proposed ordinance would be a violation of Virginia law, despite what Mr. Dixon just said. It is. And while he is promising all sorts of assistance, the reality is at the county level, you would be putting the taxpayers of this county at risk, doing something that you really shouldn't be doing at all, which is jumping into a religious debate. Again, at the county level, I think it would not only be a travesty for you to engage in this sort of behavior, but it would also cause dissent in our otherwise beautifully. Our community did not have any stress about this issue until Texas Right to Life showed up. So I just want to emphasize that people of this county know how to get along. People of this county may disagree on really important issues, but trying to create a law that asserts trying to dominate an issue of this importance is just not the American way. So I really want to emphasize that. And lastly, although he's promised legal representation, to defend the county if you are sued, I can promise you that you will be sued. And I can also tell you that the ACLU of Virginia will be representing our church in that lawsuit. So this is not hypothetical. This county will be sued. Thank you.
Star Anderson.
Hello, I'm Star Anderson, 204 Grayson Avenue, Independence. Anybody who's had high school civics is familiar with the separation and exercise clauses of the First Amendment of the Constitution. We'll skip that, even if you seem to have forgotten it, you can always Google. This resolution would become dangerously close to violating that separation of church and state. Also heard you mention the Dillon Rule earlier, so you are aware that Virginia is a Dillon Rule state. Keep that in mind. Counties passing these resolutions are displaying redundancy, exclusion, and an incredibly disrespectful, marked lack of respect for bodily autonomy. According to the VDH, there were 11 induced terminations by Grayson County residents between 2018 and 2020, far below the national average. Considering only about 1,700 people in our county of 15,000 are in the childbearing demographic, it's also worth noting that 48.5 is the median age of the county. Unless there's something in the water, I don't think there's going to be a circuit of pregnancies that need to be terminated. Excuse me, I'm having an asthma attack. If I die, it was for a good cause. Okay, I'm incredibly interested to know how many abortion clinics are actually waiting in the wings to open in an area that is nowhere near a trauma center. Or, you know, is so far from an emergency room. So let's talk to statistics. 17% of Grayson residents live in poverty. Of those, 32% have children under 18. And 46% are single mothers with children under 5. 11% of residents have no health insurance. 17% have no high school education. So with all that, let's consider the ramifications. So what would this resolution do for the children you save? So are you going to pass resolutions to bring in employers or to protect the environment from pesticides and erosion? Are you going to pass resolutions to protect LGBTQIA+ children and BIPOC children, or protect children from automatic rifles and assault weapons? What are the resolutions you're going to pass to take care of the children you save? So what will you do to ensure single mothers who are impoverished are not further disenfranchised by this resolution? As a side note, women are gathering in several states to sue their legislatures over similar resolutions, including Texas. It's delightful. I would say, and I say this with my whole heart and chest, if you purport to be pro-life, be pro-life from the womb to the tomb. You know, once they're out, take care of them. Don't vote for, you know, legislators who want to take away rights and support. Thank you.
Next, ordinance, Sanctuary County briefing. Mr. Stooge, County Attorney.
Thank members of the board for having me this evening, making some time for the discussion. As everyone knows, this is a controversial issue, and most of the briefing and discussion I would offer the board at this, what I consider a relatively early stage, would be best had in closed session to avoid having any legal advice used in any way to the county's detriment. So that would be my suggestion. The proposed ordinance, it's a novel in its novel and creative in its legal approach. It relies on a federal act that has been largely dormant, at least in the abortion context, at least since the days of when Roe v. Wade was first handed down. It's obviously found new life after the U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs decision of last summer. The federal act, commonly known as the Comstock Act, has been the subject of recent conflicting court opinions from the United States Department of Justice, and its interpretation, in my view, has not been definitively settled. There is reason to believe, as you've heard tonight, that a court challenge could result if the ordinance is adopted. And for that reason, I think a closed session discussion is appropriate once we get into any sort of technical details. I'd be happy to discuss in generalities tonight the process for ordinance adoption or anything that wouldn't tread on sort of sensitive legal advice at this stage. But with that, but in general, most of the discussion that I think would be best in closed session. During open session questions, I'd be happy to address them.
I have some questions. Mr. Derby, does this ordinance quote any scripture or promote any religion?
There is nothing that I've seen that brings an establishment clause concern to my mind. The concerns that I would address are of a different nature.
Okay. And because I knew you had reviewed that, so and I wanted to get into process a little bit. So in order to move forward with the process, it's my understanding that that we would need to schedule a public hearing where we could hear all sides of the concern. Can you tell us about that process?
Absolutely. The county's process has always been, upon adoption of an ordinance, to advertise twice in accordance with the Code of Virginia and to hold a public hearing. We've done that on every ordinance that I think the county's ever adopted. That's pretty standard practice for localities in Virginia, and that's the advice that I always give and my colleagues always give, is to have that public hearing. However, the public hearing is not, that's not required under the code, but I certainly recommend a public hearing whenever you are considering adoption of an ordinance. What you have to do is give 2 notices 2 weeks before the adoption of any ordinance. The notices need to be 1 week apart.
So the public hearing itself is not required by law.
It's not required by the Code of Virginia.
All right, so I know you've reviewed the letters and correspondences that we've got from both sides of the issue. And it relates to the and if we are sued, if you proceed with this, do you deem that to be a validation?
Mr. Mitchell has a certainly very accomplished attorney. You do not have any sort of retainer agreement or anything in place at this time for the defense. That might be something if the board does wish to proceed, that's something I think you should consider nailing down a little more before adoption of any ordinance.
Something more than what the letter, like the contract, or just reiterate that they are willing to with the county.
Yeah, I would want to. There might be a number of ways that you could structure legal defense, but I think that's something that should be looked into before any vote on the ordinance is finalized.
And although it's not law that we have to have a public hearing, personally, I believe it's important that we do so all sides can be represented and speak. I think that's important. I just wanted to throw that 2 cents in. I wasn't trying to imply or suggest that, we should avoid that.
I didn't interpret it that way.
It's for the sake of our citizens.
Sure.
Any questions?
Thanks, Steve.
Can we take a look at vouchers or
I think that that would be up to the board. Different boards handle it different ways as far as your action items, but generally, a motion from the floor, if seconded, and proceed for action.
all right, so with that being said, I would like to make a motion that we schedule a public hearing on this resolution.
I'm sorry, what is ordinance, not a resolution?
I'm sorry, for the ordinance. For the sanctuary community board.
Okay, have a motion before the board. Second.
Go into.
Right, so and we have quite a bit of time to hear both sides. And even after the hearing, table it if we still have further questions as a board. Is that not true? Sure.
No, that's correct. Just because you've advertised and held a public hearing, you're not obligated to take a vote at any particular time on the advertised ordinance.
So, and that was the intent of my motion, is to, so we could get to a point where we could get both sides.
All right, this is both sides. I'll say.
We have a motion with the second from the board. Any discussion by a few board members? Prior to the vote?
I know I may have over discussed it, but this is to have a public hearing. It's not to pass the actual ordinance.
Right, I took your motion to proceed with the public hearing, to advertise the ordinance. You have a draft ordinance before you. I think all the board members have received. So if I understand correctly, it would be to advertise that ordinance for adoption and schedule a public hearing.
It's true.
We're just both sides of the story, correct? We're not. Both.
Yeah, and as part of that process, you would need to advertise that twice in accordance with Virginia Code Section 15.2, 1427F, because counties have to advertise twice. So you'd be doing that in the newspaper. And the advertisement that I would propose would reference the ordinance, the draft ordinance that you have, and which would be available for public inspection at the Office of the County Administration. So if the citizens who are concerned about it could get their own copy, get an email to them, pick up a copy, so they can review it and give their feedback to the board.
We haven't had a chance to go through the ordinance with our county attorney. Tonight's the first time we're going to get a chance to talk about the legal implications. And before we know everything that we're getting into, I support the public hearing, but not until we have had a chance to go through this as a board and have a conversation with our county attorney.
Mr. Fan, anything?
Yeah, that's kind of my sentiment as well. Before we vote on, I support the public hearing, but I just would like to sit down with the urban and hear the other side of it all the way.
So, if we vote to move forward with the public hearing, we still can do all those things and sit down with Mr. Durbin, which we're going to do in closed session. Even if we get to the point we have the public hearing, the night of the public hearing, we wouldn't necessarily have to take concerns. We can be tabled.
Until I've had a chance to go through the ordinance with our attorney and I've heard enough talk about it that we wouldn't adopt the ordinance as it is anyway, it would have to be changed. We're planning for public theater is all we're doing until we've had a chance to talk with legal on what we waited.
I don't think it's trying to get away with anything. I think our legal has had the ordinance on the.
We haven't met with, we're meeting with him tonight in closed session. Until I've had a chance to go through with that. I support the public comment, but not until we've had a chance to battle with the board in closed session.
In favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Opposed. Chair, aye.
Yes.
Right.
In a motion, at this point, to move into closed session for consultation of legal counsel regarding specific legal matters pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia involving briefing concerning the county attorneys.
I'm all. And. There was more.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. They're also aye.
If there's any other starting games planned after the closed session.
Right.